as it's also time to tweet all that you hear during the Social Media Week Mumbai. So keep your phones on, but please do keep them in the silent mode. Thank you. A very warm welcome as well to this side of the audience. Well, they often say, in fact, we've heard of a very famous quote on the theory of evolution by Charles Darwin, and he said, survival of the fittest. Well, one thing's for sure, that with the theory of evolution of social media, it's become the survival of the fastest, because it's not the big eating the small, it's fast eating the slow. Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to all of you to the Social Media Week Mumbai. Well, our presenting sponsor being Tata Motors, and this is going to be a 5-day festival, a 5-day extravaganza featuring some of our esteemed speakers, and we're going to be discussing very, very relevant topics with regard to social media. Now, I do know one thing for sure, that we are fresh out of the Diwali festival, and it being a Monday, 5:36 p.m., that all of you have actually arrived here. It just shows this means serious business. The fact that I've come back again to Social Media Week Mumbai to host it again shows I seriously want more followers. So yes, it looks like we all have our own agenda in mind. No worries on that. But you know what? We need some enthusiasm from the audience, because we are starting this off. We're kicking it off right away. So this is what we're going to do. So we're going to say one. I want all of you to clap. Okay, let's give it a shot. One. One, one. One, one, one. One, 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 one. One, one, one. 1, 2. Now we know how many of you are attentive over here. No worries on that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, one thing is for sure, this is a social media week. We also have the metadata tag for all of you. It's called #SMW Mumbai. So keep the tweets coming. Now, in case our speakers are here, one thing is for sure, during this 5-day festival, they will not feel offended if it is right down on your mobile, because they know you're tweeting about them and their topics. So keep those tweets coming. It's #SMW Mumbai. My name is Kavya Chavli. I'm going to be your host for today, and I'm more than delighted to welcome all of you to this first edition of Social Media Week Mumbai. Now, before we give a head start with our fantastic sessions in store, it is only befitting for me to invite on stage the director of Social Media Week Mumbai and Bengaluru, also a passionate entrepreneur, marketer, and speaker. Please help me welcome on stage to present the welcome address, Mr. Rohit Verma.
Good evening, guys. Just after Diwali, we are getting into Social Media Week, and this is the 5th edition of Social Media Week in India, and the 3rd one in Bombay. Every edition, we look at how should we improvise, what kind of content we should bring on the table, and what kind of speakers which will give enough information to all of us to decide what we can do in social media. So this time, the way we have planned Social Media Week, we obviously know it's 5 days. So day 1, we are sitting here right now. Day 2 is going to be focused on media, entertainment, and publishing. Day 3 is going to be for advertising and marketing. Day 4, we have a mix of the content, in which we will cover education, health, food, travel, all that kind of a content. And on the last day, once again, we start off at 3 o'clock, and we have got lots of high-powered speakers. We have somebody who has come all the way from Canada to deliver the keynote today, and I'm pretty sure that is going to be really, really interesting. So the lineup, the kind of content what we have is going to make a lot of difference to our lives and what we do in social media. So thank you for attending, and I'm sure you will enjoy all these 5 days. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rohit. Well, one thing is for sure that well, after setting the tone for this fabulous edition of SMW Mumbai, it's now time to get started with our next set of sessions. I did notice that when a lot of people turned up right inside, especially the women, they noticed this wonderful photo of Lionel Messi and going like, ooh la la. Well, one thing's for sure, well, he's now the global brand ambassador of Tata Motors. And this evening, we actually have the presence of the head marketing for Tata Motors, Miss Delna Avari. And she's someone who's driven with passion to excel. And she, my dear friends, has been the driving force behind getting Lionel Messi to India. So ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our first speaker, Miss Delna Avari.
Namaste, India.
Well, I guess that I should be saying namaste as well. So namaste, everyone. It's indeed an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having us here. So when I mention the word brand, all of us intuitively have a reaction to it. So if I asked you what's a cool brand, I'm sure something popped in your mind. If I ask you an uncool brand, I'm sure something popped again. A brand from your childhood? There, I can see a nod. Brands that have lost their way. There, you got another nod. And that's really what brands are. Brands are living beings. And if they're not managed well, they can lose their way. Managed well, they actually continue on. In this very, very hyper-connected world, today more and more as marketers, we have to face the challenge that a brand is not really just built by a TVC. It's not really about getting one TVC out there, one print, maybe add an outdoor or a radio. In the last few years, just digital has become a thing. It was a buzzword, then it became the mainstay. Then we added mobile to it, and so on and so forth. Most of the time, people who actually have an opinion on your brand have not even experienced it. And most of the time, when it is in the automotive category, that's really what happens. Automotive brands are actually supposed to be sexy and cool and out there. But in reality, what happens is a lot of people have opinions, and a lot of it is thanks to you, because in the social media space, very often you have an opinion that takes traction, and very often you've not even experienced the brand. 2 years back, when I actually started the marketing function in Tata Motors, so we were organized differently. It was in lines of business. Marketing as a function had not been a separate function. And when I actually started this department, the first thing that I asked myself is, what does Tata Motors passenger vehicle stand for? And if I actually went out there and looked in the digital space, there were lots and lots of opinions. And lots of it was in the social media space. A lot of it was in auto blogs, but a lot of it was opinions. There was some reality about Tata as a brand. There was a lot of reality, and I'm going to name the brands, and all of you will again react to it. Nano, there's an opinion. Safari, there's an opinion. Indica, Indigo, all our brands, our sub-brands have an opinion, but in reality, what does Tata Motors passenger vehicle stand for? So then starts the long journey of saying, what do you stand for? And you start doing focus group discussions, we speak with social media experts, we speak with people in the field, we speak with people less than 35, older, and tragically what you really see is that a lot of what people have to say is disparate. Because when you don't manage your brand and you don't define what your brand stands for, everyone has an opinion and your opinion becomes your reality. And from there started, for any brand to be authentic, a brand needs to actually have something as an anchor. So when we decided the 3 pillars, what Tata Motors is for, the first one, and again I'm going to see all of you intuitively nod, is trustworthy. Does that kind of go? Absolutely. I mean, that's what it is, right? The minute you say Tata, trustworthy, which simply means I will do what I say I will do. Simple definition. Then comes the second one, really, which is about pioneering. Do you think we're pioneering? Let me give you some statistics or some facts. We got the first compact sedan, we got the lowest cost car, we got the first real SUV. In more recent times, you've actually had the first petrol engine with multi-drive, you have the first diesel AMT. Are these all, some of them are, but are they all clutter-breaking innovations and cutting-edge technology? Nice words, but what is it that we really stand for? We stand for saying that we will be ahead of the pack and we will always bring in the best. How many of you know that Tata Motors actually, as a policy, has a 1-year sabbatical that you can take? Yeah, you can go and study, you can actually go find yourself in the Himalayas, you can do what you want, but you can actually do that. As a policy, we also have work from home. So it is not really just about products, but also the kind of policies, what you stand for as an organization. You push the needle. You go out there and you lead. The marketing, the kind of marketing that we've done, whether it's the mobile or digital or the kind of communities we build or the way we work with influencers, that's a very different way of doing things, and we always want to pioneer. Now the third is really the tricky one. So when we spoke with less than 35-year-olds, they had no opinion on our brand. And if they had an opinion, it was very often what they picked up from the social media space. Very often, something that they had never even experienced a product. Now, why is it important to have an opinion? Why is it important to have the correct opinion? And why did we then come up with the word called cool as a third pillar? And honestly, when we define cool, cool really is very simply anything that makes me feel, one, good about myself, but cool only works through association, which basically means that my peer group must want to associate with me. Only then it's cool. But now if I have to stand here and tell you all that I am really, really cool, that's hugely uncool, right? And that's really what it was all about. You cannot be telling people that you're cool. It has to be confident, it has to be effortless. Effortlessness is extremely important. Also, when you're trying to establish something is cool, it's important that you are not that today, you want to be that. If you want to make that journey faster, in this very connected age, you need to ensure that you connect with your audience right away. And a brand ambassador actually helps you do that. Then comes a point, really, how do you select a brand ambassador? Why did you, so the one question I am always answering nowadays is why Lionel Messi, right? And honestly, the immediate answer is, who else? Because if you look at the Tata Motors brand and what you stand for, there's a huge value match with him. And then he brings that little extra that you want. Also, when you look at a brand ambassador, or a decision to get a brand ambassador, the thing that you must keep in mind always, if it is a longer-term relationship, your brand ambassador has to continue being relevant for the longer term for your target audience. And that is extremely important. Lionel Messi is relevant to that audience for a longer term, over a longer period. And then comes another fact. The fortunes of your brand ambassador cannot be affected by one match, one movie, Box Office Friday. It cannot affect you. It has to be someone who's so strong and has moved to such a level that they are not affected by what happens around them. When I tell you all of this, now do you wonder why Lionel Messi? The fact of the matter remains that the mainstay of India will always be, or I won't say will always be, but for the foreseeable future will be cricket and Bollywood. Great stuff to do tactically. But if you're looking at it from a long term, and you're looking at the development of where the country is going, it's football. You speak to the younger generation, the fastest growing sport. Today, Lionel Messi already is way ahead of the pack. So we decided to get him. Now comes the fun part. All of us have always talked to various media very happily. मेरे को TV करना है, print, outdoor कर लो, अच्छा एक radio भी कर लो, अच्छा ठीक है mobile कर लो, digital कर लो, and all of those nice little mediums. Today is not a day of silo. Today, if you actually want to effectively communicate, it is each of these mediums feeding off each other. No medium is able to exist by itself. The interconnectedness of each of this is what will give us success going forward. And from there started the crazy, crazy challenge of bringing this entire association to life. And it really, and I'm sure when we talk on the panel, you'll realize what it is that we had to actually do to create, because you had to think TV, print, stills, digital, mobile, augmented reality, virtual reality, sentences that he can speak. What do you do on ground? How do you create experiences? What experiences do you create at various stages of your campaign? And all of that had to be thought well in advance. So in conclusion, all I would say is that a lot of you have seen the first communication. And where does that communication really come from? All of us know that talent by itself is just not enough. To talent, you will always add that little extra called your sweat, your sacrifice. Nothing worthwhile is ever achieved, and I am actually paraphrasing J.R.D. Tata when I say that nothing worthwhile is ever achieved without a lot of hard work, a lot of passion in there. But even that is not enough, because when you forget your roots, when you forget who you are, you lose your way. So your roots is what makes you humble, it keeps you centered. And then how can we forget all those lovely people who constantly love to criticize you? They make you laugh sometimes, and they make you sad sometimes. But what they always do is make you way stronger and tougher. But at the end of the day, all I would say to everyone out here, that what drives you from within is really what makes you great. Thank you.
Check. All right. May I admit the fact that that was one of the coolest start to a program ever. Can we have a huge round of applause one more time for Delna Awari? I mean, it's fabulous to see with the passion that you've spoken to the audience and sharing your experience as well. Well, ladies and gentlemen, after hearing it out directly from Ms. Delna Awari herself on the entire process of getting Lionel Messi on board to be part as the global brand ambassador for Tata Motors, I'm sure all of you would also be very keen to also know what really went behind the scenes, or what really it took for all the key stakeholders to come together. And that is what brings us to our next topic, which is the integration challenge. So here is when we're going to get started with our panel discussion. And I'd like to invite all of our panel members, our esteemed panel members. Firstly, I'd like to invite our session moderator, Mr. Anant Rangaswamy, who is the editor of CNBC TV 18. Can we have a warm round of applause? A very warm welcome, sir. Our next speaker for the session, ladies and gentlemen, may I please invite Mr. Deepak Netram, who is the Senior Vice President of Lodestar UN. Mr. Kunal Jeswani, CEO, Ogilvy Group, India, and also board member in charge of Soho Square. Mr. Amresh Godbole, Managing Director, Digitars LBI. Mr. Sandeep Mehta, Vice President, Wizcraft International Entertainment Private Limited. And finally, once again, let's welcome back Ms. Delna Awari, Head Marketing for Tata Motors. But I'd like to hand over the proceedings to our session moderator, Mr. Anant Rangaswamy. Over to you, sir.
Talent, it made him exceptional. His roots made him humble. Tackles made him tough. The critics, they only made him tougher. Of the many things that made this man, that stubborn little boy, made him great. What drives us from within is what makes us great, driven by design, technology, and the road ahead. Tata Motors, made of great.
Yeah, for the next for the next half an hour or so, we're going to talk about the rest of the campaign. You've just seen this bit, you haven't seen the rest of it. But before we start there, I'm going to go back a little bit in time. You know, many, many years ago, I used to work in advertising. And I used to head the Bombay office of an agency called TBWA. And, you know, one day I got a mail from the New York office saying they needed help. They wanted to come to Bombay and shoot a film for Absolute Vodka. I was fantastically excited because that's a cool brand, you know, Absolute. And I had visions, and my creative director had visions of, you know, working on this great film for New York. As I read the mail, I discovered that all they wanted was logistical help, you know, in case they needed a car or needed a hotel room or, you know, change their foreign exchange. You know, that's all they wanted. They didn't want any help whatsoever from us. And then I was going through their schedule, and they had a pack-up at Film City at 10 o'clock, and they had a flight out of Sahar at 2 o'clock. Then I sent back a mail saying, you know, aren't you cutting this too tight? What if you run late? And I got a mail back which said, why should you run late? And, you know, that's an enormous lesson, you know, that you could actually have a film shoot which went bang on time. And the reason I share this with you is because of the extraordinary logistical challenges that Messi gave this entire team, especially Delna, who's writing the checks. Now, Messi was available to this team, which has created the campaign that you see today and the rest that you will see, for only 4 hours. 4 hours was all that he was available for. And this 4 hours included his physical movement from, say, one room to another, or time taken for him to have a quick sandwich or a glass of water, or for the translator, the interpreter, to talk to him and tell him stuff that he could understand. That's all he had, 4 hours. Now, I'm going to stop up with my talking and get to Kunal, who is going to tell you about what it took to plan these 4 hours with Messi. Because, you know, each one of these 4 hours cost thousands of dollars. Kunal. What's the 4 hours?
Okay, so just one small correction. We had 4 hours in front of the camera, not
Right.
just not the
Okay,
food
right.
and stuff.
Fair enough.
They were
Okay.
kind enough to say, listen, 4 hours in front of camera is good, right? You know, like Anant was saying, when we do a lot of shoots and stuff, you usually have time. You have the luxury of saying, I want 2 days, I want 3 days. Sorry, it's a complex shoot, I want 7 days. You know, it'll take time. We'll travel, we'll do whatever it is, right? In this case, we
Is
didn't
he
have.
audible at the back? Can you hear him? All of you at the back?
Great, okay. So we didn't have that.
Hold the mic closer.
We had 4 hours, and we had to create 6 months of content, right? And that 6 months of content was not just advertising content. It was content for everyone, right? And for the brand to live across media, on television, in print, on digital, on-ground activation, in showrooms, for the auto show, you know, a lot of stuff, right? Now, you can get into something like this and say, okay, I've got 4 hours. Let me work out my, you know, film script, and everything else we'll just manage around that. Right? It doesn't work. It doesn't work today when film is literally one part of the mix. There's a lot more that's important for the brand. So what we had to do, you know, with no choice in the matter, we really had to do it. It was imperative for this brand and this project. Was get integrated as a team right up front, right? And work together right up front to say, you know, we've all got this 4-hour period. It's for all of us, right? From Delna and all of us in the team to say across all media, we've got 4 hours. How do we make the best use of this time, right? What do we do? Do we shoot film? Do we shoot still? Do we shoot digital video? How much time will we need for each thing? So, you know, we had to coordinate right up front, list down every single shot we were going to take on video, every single shot on still, multiple sets, you know, to move Messi from one set to another, to ensure we had all the content mapped out. And we had each shot timed by the minute, right? So he would arrive at minute 0, and this is what we would do in minute 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and every single shot was broken down.
Kunal, once
and
I'll
that's
go
how it was
to
run.
Delna over here. You know, Delna, you have, you know, in theory, when in today's era of integrated marketing and so on, you are forced to work with multiple, say, communication partners or vendors, or call them what you want. But here you're forced to get them to work as a team. Now, you've created campaigns before in Tata Motors. Have you ever seen, or have you ever been in a position where you needed actual teamwork, not pretense, not lip service? Have you ever been in this situation before?
You're absolutely right. You know, honestly, when I started interacting or looking, so when we did the creative pitch and Made of Great came up, right that moment itself, I very clearly stated that this is partnership. And I actually, today there is nothing like an agency and a client, or an influencer and a client, you know. Those words, if you use, then really you're in the dark ages. Because today it is all about partnerships. And it's all about everyone feeling a part of what they are creating. Honestly, the first time when we had those combined briefing sessions, I can assure you that it was not all that easy. So everyone met in and everyone was super excited. Obviously, you're working on Lionel Messi and it's great stuff. But sure enough, the next day, people had just gone back and saying, okay, we're back to our business. But it was consistently actually having a lot of meetings and interactions. In every briefing session, we were always together. After a point in time, I've become redundant. So today, frankly, I just land up.
Right.
The work is all done. You know, it's everyone's talking to each other.
Now, is there a learning for all marketers here, saying that when you do an integrated marketing campaign, for God's sake, don't pay lip service, but learn to create a team. You know, it's said in your textbooks, you read it, and people often say it, and you got, you know, 4 people at the table other than you, your partners, and I don't think any of them, Sandeep, or you want to share with me, Amrish, whether you have seen this kind of teamwork ever before. I mean, this is not the first big campaign you're creating, or, you know, any of you really. Sandeep, certainly not. Enough of stuff you're creating, but
yeah, so I think you hit the nail on the head. So I think there's a lot of lip service which happens in terms of collaboration, but this particular campaign, and we've all been very personally involved in this, and this particular campaign is probably the best real example of collaboration that I've experienced between agencies. And I think, like you said, it was kicked off because of Dalna's initiative, but eventually we all started working together. And we've kind of come together as a team very, very genuinely and very, very spontaneously. And I think what also helps is the fact that the campaign is genuinely integrated. It's not like, we're doing bits and pieces work here and bits and pieces work.
So tell me, were you able to add to say what Deepak is doing and vice versa?
Absolutely.
Were things like that possible? Was there osmosis out there? And
Absolutely. So I think it works on 2 or 3 levels, right? When you think about digital, one is taking the big idea that Ogilvy had cracked, which was Meet of Great, and amplifying it on the digital platform. But then what we also need to do is deliver a lot of authentic content. So for instance, there were some great experiential events which Wizcraft had planned, and we actually use the digital medium to amplify them further.
Right. So Sandeep, tell me, like I said, you've worked on lots of seemingly integrated campaigns. When I say you, meaning Wizcraft and you personally. But tell me what's different about this campaign. Do you agree with what Amrish is saying, or can you add to that?
So this campaign from us has been, how should I say, completely different, because we're not talking about a product here. What we're talking about is a personality. We're talking about the belief or the partnership. So when Amrish mentioned that he got content from on-ground activation, I think the first thing that we tried to do, and we asked people around, was Lionel Messi and Tata Motors, the Made of Great partnership. What is your first response? The first response was, I want to meet him. Right? The first thing everybody said was like, somebody else was saying, ooh la la about Messi here. They want to meet him. So we took that thought onto the ground, and we said, come, get your AR app augmented photograph done, share that with us, share that with digital. And perhaps now we have over 45,000 photographs already clicked. Right. So that's how the integration actually started off.
So are you guys on a WhatsApp group? Hello?
Multiple WhatsApp groups.
No, multiple WhatsApp. No, that's important. Does that mean that you can talk to each other directly without waiting for, some formal structure to come? Is that?
See, I think, this is perhaps the only time that we can pick up the phone and talk to each other.
Right.
WhatsApp aside, if I feel the need for something to be amplified on ground, he's one phone call away. Or if I need a creative to be done for me, Kunal is one phone call away. So Delna actually, like she said, is more in the background and letting us play amongst each other.
Right. Deepak, yours is perhaps the least sexy of all these jobs, no? You get something from somebody and then, programmatic takes it away from there, So what is your experience? How different has it been? Because normally, I wouldn't have some agencies table.
Absolutely.
Sorry,
but
can we have the...
Yeah, can you hear me? But you'll be surprised to know that I've been involved with this from day one.
Right.
And even I was equally surprised.
Right.
What role we would be playing. But in those 4 hours, we were also thinking on our feet in terms of what are the kind of integrations we would be doing, what kind of footage we'll require. And I think the whole thing ultimately, grows onto you. We were also, very clear with all of this that, we had to do a path-breaking strategy. So nothing that we did was the conventional auto strategy, right from targeting. So we didn't go after only the male car purchasers. We actually thought of influencers, and we targeted men, we targeted kids, we targeted youth, even women.
Right.
So that, we were able to create the magic that we were looking out to do. Likewise, when it came to the strategy, we had a very strong...
How much did you interact with, say, Sandeep and Amrish?
All the time.
All the time, which is completely unusual for you. I mean,
Yeah,
how
absolutely.
often does Lodestar get involved with an event agency or a digital agency on a,
Well,
this level of intimacy?
This campaign, I think, was the highest interaction.
Right.
And considering that, things were starting at different points in time. So mass media, mainline media actually started right towards the end. But we were involved right from the teaser campaign, which began in digital.
Right.
So that's how we were thinking. Even in terms of the kind of properties we were taking, the kind of channel mix we were taking, it was all meant to be integrated. So the property, for example, that we went after was not one of those high cost, high, sponsorship kind of properties. We looked at properties which helped us to integrate everything. For example, we took On Air with AIB on Hotstar, which was resting on Hotstar, but going to Star Plus
Right.
and to Star World in English.
Right.
So in a way, we were chasing a complete 360-degree approach when it came to reaching out to these audiences.
This, I'm hearing from all of them more or less the same thing, that it has been an extraordinary experience for them, in the sense that they haven't seen this level of intimacy with communication partners before. Now, you seem not to have seen this level. How much are you going to learn from this and say, hey, I can do this for the next car launch, even if it doesn't have a Lionel Messi? How much efficiency do you think you've gained by having a great team working together?
Phenomenal efficiency. And honestly, the belief that you are the one who comes up with the best ideas is really the worst thing. It can sink you. As a client, as a person who's imagining it as a head of marketing, if you fall into the trap of believing that you're the one who can come up with everything, then you're really in trouble. And what we saw out here, the power of collaboration, the power of the best ideas coming from various quarters, and the level of efficiency that we got in. And there was never a feeling of possession. What I mean by possession is we often throw an idea and then you say, okay, this is mine. It was never that. So, hey, you know what? Deepak, why don't you look at what you can do with Hotstar? Why are you going after ISL on TV? Don't bother about it. Early days itself, we said our audience is sitting in the digital space, so go get it on Hotstar. What are you doing in the TV space? Do you still need the conventional channel? So there was a great idea that came from one of the young chaps on integration, which you will see roll out in a few days. So ideas came from various places. Nobody was possessive about that idea, and they were for various mediums. So there was a lot of cost.
Just practically, how did this work? As in, how often all five of you sit in a room in the lead up to you're going to Barcelona to shoot? How often did you meet? Was it once a week, once a month?
No, you'll be amazed, because let me also tell you about Barcelona. Look, I mean, we signed Lionel.
Before Barcelona?
No, I'm saying even we signed Lionel without meeting.
Right.
Right? So today is, when we say, I mean, there are a lot of people who say connectivity and connected and mobile and this and that, but in reality, a lot of people don't practice it. But we actually signed on this person only through conversations on phone calls,
right,
email, WhatsApp.
Right.
Even here, it was really about just the first couple of meetings when you're meeting together and you get going. And after that, as Amrish laughed, we actually have multiple groups, and they have their multiple subgroups. So even if an activation is happening, there's a separate subgroup that is happening, and they're talking to each other. I have nothing to do with it.
I'm going to stay with you till now, while everybody is, fine and laughing and huggy and kissy and all that. There's going to be a point when you come to metrics, and then that's when, the hugging stops. Because here, who measures whether digital delivered or whether events delivered, whether mainline delivered, media delivered?
He's trying to pitch in, because nothing out here ever happens without an ROI.
Can't
right?
happen.
I mean, I'm an economics person as a background.
That's when the sort of team kind of breaks down. You let Messi pass you and he scored a goal. It's like that. So how do you get to that? Because when you have true integration, measurement becomes a little hazy also.
No, actually,
unless you don't have micro measurements, you have a macro.
We have both.
We have both.
So you can't have a macro measurement without breaking it down on how you're going to achieve it.
Right.
And as I said, the economist in me will never allow me to do anything unless I can see a clear return on investment. It is there.
So to that extent, there's still some silos, because each has got
each person on
KPI.
Whatever they are doing has one.
Right.
So for instance, I mean, hey, at the end of the day, the measure for this last activation really was photographs.
Right.
Yeah, so even if it's that, and a percentage of the photographs must have people below a certain age.
Right.
So metrics can be anything, right?
Sure,
so you have to define it for the medium. Of course, it's much easier in terms of million impressions that you need to deliver. So we've done about 280.
You can just buy them and be done with it.
Yeah, I mean,
digital is easy to throw
right?
numbers. I can tell you 280 million impressions. I can tell you 9.8 million Truecaller calls. But they need to feed back into the brand metrics that have been initially defined.
Right.
So one thing we've trained our teams to do is do not send a deck to Telnet till you can define the ROI.
Right.
And that's really important. I think it's a good way to work.
Right. So the first metric would have been how people reacted to the commercial, and how people reacted to your full page ads.
Right.
So how have you crossed that hurdle?
So look, there are going to be, so as an overall, before we started this, we did our clear brand tracks. We have measures of what is our baseline.
Right.
Okay. And then we have very clearly articulated what do we want the brand pillars to be, which I alluded to earlier.
Right.
So there is something that we will measure every 6 months, which
Right.
is a brand movement. If you're expecting brand movements to happen every month, it won't, right? But we have, every activation will have a reaction as well. So in terms of right now, we are going in for views, we're going in for deliverables on the number of people who've actually engaged with us, impressions, all of that is how we are measuring it. Our assumption here is that it will add up to what we want as a brand track measure. We will test it, and if it doesn't deliver, then obviously we are off track and we need to do something about it, which
So
we'll do together.
You wanted to say something?
Yeah,
when-
actually, while we have our individual benchmarks, like Delna was saying earlier, we were all feeding into each other.
Right.
So whether it's about content, whether it's about figuring out what kind of reactions the initial campaign is picking up, so all of it ultimately it's like one cycle. For example, if Viscraft is doing something on ground, we also have to make sure that we deliver through radio, the local amplification.
Right.
What else we can do? Can we get RJs there? How can we get
So
people talking?
for that, is Delna again the policewoman, or
No, not
did
at all.
They talk
Quite
directly, or-
frankly, they talk to themselves,
Okay,
they
no,
talk
I'm
to
just
each other.
checking. Okay.
The studio shifts have been happening now, and I had no clue.
Okay. So, sorry.
So, there are standard ways of doing things. I think the benchmarks are like a hygiene. This campaign was not actually only about the, standard and the hygiene kind of stuff, which is why, we started looking at things at the next level. Like, for example, content. If you look at the conventional way people do these kind of announcement ads, there'll be, a big picture, there'll be a whole lot of products and things like that. Our launch announcement ad actually came as a, half page, main page, headline news kind of coverage. It didn't look like an ad. Then when, Leo Messi did Namaste to India, it was actually tagged onto content, on GCs, on news, on movies, things like that. Even the, launch campaign ad, which is, something that happened over Saturday and today, is like a poster.
Kunal, launch campaign, car launch, a car ad without a car. Where did that come from?
Honestly, I don't think this is a car ad or a car campaign.
Sure.
It's for a brand, right?
Right.
It's a brand campaign, right? And I don't think you need to have a car there. It's about saying, this is us. This
Did
is
you
what
have
we
any
stand
references of brands which have used a celebrity in a similar construct? Did you?
We looked at a lot of stuff in the initial stages, but
Right.
beyond that, we moved forward in conversations with Delna to say, how do we do this, how do we do that, and how do we approach the advertising, and finally we came to what we had, right? But I think it was very liberating. It was very liberating to be able to look at this as a campaign for the brand versus for an individual car.
Delna, we all of us know that in large companies you have any number of internal stakeholders, forget about the external ones. And, so this layout is there with Messi and no car and minimal copy. We're not saying much. So what is the task in selling it internally? Obviously, it's easier to buy if you tell them about where the campaign is going to end up 6 months from now. But how difficult is it to sell it internally?
So I think I would say at the top management level, there's a clear understanding of what we need to do. I
Sure.
think your falling market share is a very clear indication that you need to do something about your brand. I think the knowledge, understanding of it was there 2 years back, 1 year back with the changes. Everyone knew it. You're very right. It's going down the line where somewhere people start saying, what is the organization doing and where is it going to take us? And very often people cannot see the vision or where you are going. They can only see things as they roll out. But honestly, that's also part of the challenge, right? So it is not just about your external world, but it's also a lot of communication internally. So a lot of this engagement and excitement, we actually did internally as well. So there are employee contests running in. Employees get a chance to actually engage with the ambassador. They get to post questions. They get to send their messages. So we've created stuff internally as well to build excitement.
Kunal, this is November, so good timing for entering this in the awards. So whose name comes up in the entry form?
So that's a good point.
It's an important thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it
Is
is.
Viscraft there? Are they not there?
So
How does it-
I was thinking of it when you were talking about metrics and stuff like that, whether we have individual metrics.
Do you have it award-winning
it
as a
works
metric?
together, right? I think it's great to have individual metrics, but I think the campaign succeeds as a whole, right? I think, if I were to ever sit up and say, listen, So Square created the campaign and is the heart of the campaign, I'd really be lying, right? I think everyone on the team has put in elements to the campaign that will help it succeed.
So did you get inputs which helped your print ad, for example, to look better, or the TVC to look better from your other stakeholders at this table?
Yes,
Okay, you
definitely.
did? Okay, right.
So when we were doing, even before the shoot, when we were doing the shot breakdown, a lot of it was about choices. Saying what do we do and what do we not do? What can we leave out of it? Because you need to use that time effectively, right? So a lot of the inputs that came in helped us whittle down to say this is what we really need. These are the core elements that are going to see us through the next 6 months.
Right.
Yeah. And to answer your question on the award
Awards,
entry,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
I'd love to have it with all the names on it, right? And
Okay.
for it to go as a single piece
Right.
across.
No, you'll all chip in on the entry fee. It's not cheap. Hey, this thing, you guys work with a lot of celebrities, and most of them, you can't dream of doing the stuff you've done in 4 hours of shooting time in 4 days or 4 weeks with a lot of them. So what have you learned from the Tata Motors campaign that you can apply to, celebrities that you see at IFA and so on?
That's a very difficult question to answer.
Why? Very easy to answer.
No, it is a very difficult question to
Okay.
answer, but let me take it from a different angle. The collaboration that you see on the stage right now is actually a result of a lot of ownership by each of us and our teams, and the openness with which we collaborate. Right. So when he's talking of an Excel chart being drawn up before going in for shoot, I have a team looking into it and saying, okay, this bit of it could be used for content at the Auto Expo, which is in
Right.
February 2016.
Right.
So we're looking at 6 to 8 months down the line while preparing for content that Kunal is going to be shooting in Barcelona. So that's the kind of...
You have all of you have the calendar of all events which are key to Tata Motors at any given point in time.
Yes, broadly we do. We've already
Right.
seen one level of integration on ground.
Right.
We have another one coming up end
Anyway,
of the
get
month.
back to my question. So what do you do with celebrities? What have you learned from this experience, the Messi experience?
So let me say that I have to meet him to have an experience.
Right.
I have met the guys in Bollywood at IFA, but I'm waiting for next year to meet with him and then share my experiences with you.
Okay, that was ducked. But for you, for Tata Motors, what are the learnings you can apply, like I said, to anything else?
Yeah, I can understand why Sandeep would hesitate to mention that. And here is where we should actually commend Lionel Messi. Because amazing professional. He actually came on time. He drove himself. Okay, so he drove his own Range Rover, came with a friend after practice.
I thought he was in the Indigo or something. He came with a Range Rover. Okay.
So he has a Range Rover. He drove himself. He had just finished his practice session in the morning. He came with a friend. Straight went in, shook hands with everyone, went in and gave shot after shot after shot after shot. Nothing. No chai pani, no pankha, as Disa had said it as well. And that's it. He just thorough professional, smiled. The only non-Spanish thing that Lionel said was Namaste India, and it was so cute because he just did it spontaneously, and then he actually stopped to ask, did I do it right? And is this the way we do it in India? And it's just amazing, and that's the kind of person we worked with. Right. So I think a lot of what we learn is that if you plan in advance, you take it through, I would say a lot of efficiency can come in. It is possible to pull off stuff in 4 hours, which you don't think is possible because we actually finished in time. We finished early. So I would say the big learning is the person on the other side was extremely, extremely professional.
Right. It's tempting to think that today, when the campaign is broken, not everybody can relax, but obviously everybody can't because the investments you made are supposed to give you ROI for another God knows how long. So what is the regimen now for all of you working together? How do you have formal meetings or?
No, it's not over. So our work is cut out for, we have got week-wise planning up till 31st of March done.
Right.
So week-wise, we know what we are bringing out.
Right.
There's stuff that's happening now. The media drives are coming up very soon on the new car. That because the invite is out, I can actually mention it, that the invite has gone out for the new car. So we will unveil the name of the car. We will actually have the media drives. There's a lot of exciting stuff that we have. And then don't forget, in May, we'll be meeting him again. So there's a lot of stuff we'll do as a build-up to that as well.
Are we meeting him here in India? Mm-hmm. Are we meeting him here in India or other than on
they are right outside.
Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up because I thought one is we'll help organizers keep time. Two is I thought we'll create 10-15 minutes for people from the audience to ask questions because we can carry on talking, but To me, when I was asked whether I would be interested in doing a story on Tata Motors' new initiative, mentally I said, of course, it's Tata Motors is a big brand, and I told myself, we'll do 7-8 minute chunk on TV. And when I heard what it was, then I decided on storyboard to do an entire episode. And now, sitting here, I say, well, we'll have a few more episodes as we keep track of what this integration story has done. I think it's a fantastic story, and I think as media gets more and more complicated and more sort of dispersed, there are lots of learnings that all marketers will be looking to get from this, because hopefully all of them will be looking at driving efficiencies and more critically getting all their partners to work together. Because today, 10 partners or 12 partners in a single communication task is not unusual. What is unusual is the level at which everybody works as a team. Thank you so much for listening patiently through this, and open to questions from anybody. Yes? Do we have a mic floating around? And if you want a particular person to answer the question, please name the person.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure. I guess this is the question for Delna. Since this entire ad campaign is featured or is designed for Tata Motors, but it's again like an ad which is based on the fundamentals of Tata as a brand, which talks about trust, which talks about pioneering, and the various and another one which I forget. So were there any integrations that happened with other divisions of Tata with the same campaign?
Of the Tata Group, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. So you'll see the partnership evolve as we go along. And that's really what I love, by the way. Do you realize that she said trustworthy and pioneering? She didn't get the cool. And that's really what we are building with this brand, right? And that is the brand challenge. And it is not going to get fixed in the first campaign. It's not going to happen right away. It is something that we will keep building, and of course the association helps. But to answer your question, will the Tata Group be working more and more on it? Yes, because this is about partnerships. Right? Is it right away anything I can share with you? No, I can't. But it is something that we are working. This is much larger than just a car launch.
Yes? Next question. Yes, this lady over here.
Hi. Actually, you people talked a lot of things about ROI. So can you share about what ROI made a difference in your campaign, after your campaign?
Okay, so definition of ROI really at the end of the day is going to depend on multiple things. Now, if you're looking at it from a brand overall perspective, how much do I pay him and what does he get for me? That's the first one, right? Yeah, and we can't share the numbers, but the numbers are really, really, now once people realized how low they were, they said, oh my God, you've got a deal out there, steal. So really, it starts right from there to your small activities. So every activity, that what you have planned, you need to think in terms of saying, you can't say, oh, I'm going to have an influencer campaign. What do you mean by an influencer campaign? What are you going to get from it? Now, you define the return the way you want. So if it's an influencer campaign, you turn around and say that the kind of articles I will get, the number of articles that I get, the kind of shall we say, the kind of language used in the articles. You can put anything. As I said to Sandeep, I remember when I mentioned to him that my deliverable for you is number of photographs and 50% of them must have a certain age in them. That's also a return. So we very often think of return in a very conventional sense. Yeah. If you're looking at the mobile campaign that we did, the Truecaller campaign that was executed by the team, we had actually said we will send out, and I always make a mistake with lakhs, 10, right. So we had said 10 million and 9.82 is the number that we got through. So you had 98.25% reach and effectiveness of that campaign. So you can, how you define it depends on you, but you have to define it. That's important.
Thank you.
Anybody else with a question? We have time for a couple more. That lady at the, okay, after that. Yeah, please. And after that, the lady at the back. Yes.
Hi, I'm Deepthi. This is a question for anybody on the panel. So, forgive me, but I question the act of getting an ambassador for a brand. My reasoning is simple. I need you to, no. overcome this dilemma of mine. In the life cycle of a brand, when a brand is coming to a point where they need to either regenerate or rebrand their perspective, how does associating with a cool person or ambassador help a brand, channel that or imbibe that into their own brand itself? Because, the identities, the values are very different.
I know whether Delna wants to answer. I've got a rude answer. Buy some books, buy some textbooks. That's the rude answer. Buy some textbooks and read it.
No, I've been part of the marketing space myself. But
so this is like fairly fundamental, how you rejuvenate a brand and take a
No, it is.
celebrity.
It's true.
So-
And I get what you're saying, that she rightly mentioned that the cool factor is
Absolutely.
something that the lady there missed.
Right.
But I'm just trying to associate that where I'm coming from is, why can't a brand try to recreate that cool factor within itself? That's my question, as opposed to getting it from an outside source.
It is not going to come from an outside source, right? An outside source can only get my conversations going. But what did I mention earlier? I said, if you've got to stand out there and say that I am cool, then you're extremely uncool. And as a matter of fact, we would not normally articulate that that's our goal. But here is a learning session, right? So here is a bunch of people who actually are interested in this space, right? To the vast majority public, I'm not going to say, you know what, I sign him on because I want to be cool. I won't. For anything to work, it has to be authentic. So if you remember when I mentioned it's about policies, it's about processes, it's about how the internal stakeholders behave, it's about how the customer experience is, it's how our sales experience is, it's how our service experience is. Each of them, each of those points, all those touch points also need to have that same brand DNA that we are trying to establish. Which is why it is extremely important that each of those also push the envelope in what they're trying to do. Okay? I think I already answered why a brand ambassador helps you. Yes, a brand can go through the journey and do it yourself. But if you have a great partner and you know what you're using the partner for, you can actually get a much faster, quicker lift. Okay? So you might use somebody tactically for a short-term intervention, but you might, if you want to use it for a longer-term intervention, then you better have a value match. The person better be above board and better be relevant to your audience for the longer term.
Sure.
Does that answer the question? Okay. The lady at the back over there, I think there was someone at the back who had, have you got a mic over there?
It's not. Hi, my name is Haley. I just want to ask, you mentioned the Truecaller campaign. So could you share with us what was the campaign?
Right. So considering we had a personality like Lionel Messi, what was done is a tie-up with Truecaller where we actually created a profile for Lionel Messi. And essentially 10 million people got a call from that profile with the Lionel Messi IVR saying, namaste and welcoming, essentially saying that the association is launched. And 9.8 million out of those 10 million actually answered the call. And if you go and check Twitter, you'll see that a lot of people actually started putting up screenshots and were really excited about it because it just gave that personal touch to the whole campaign. And it was a mobile-only idea, if you will.
So it's like when we got up in the morning of the 3rd and we said every single medium will say hello, right? So you had the TV which did the clip that you saw earlier of Namaste India, but it didn't end with that. You actually took it into something like the mobile as well. So you actually got a call, a missed call from Lionel Messi in the morning saying, hey, hi, I'm in India, So it was something like that. It was very unique and he's right. It was created only for the mobile.
So the whole campaign, along with this element, kind of, brought alive the idea of India wakes up to Lionel Messi. So.
One last question. Yes, over there. The lady in the second row. Can we have a mic over there?
Hi. So I think the cool part is really great because Tatas really needed that. But the other fact is Tatas are known for their heavy vehicles. And the recent Volkswagen, the scenario we saw, don't you think a part of that should have also been coming in your social media? Because we are responsible today. If, okay, there's government who needs to take responsibility. But even like a brand like Tata, we expect them to come, speak, especially when there's so much rebranding happening. why not
Sorry,
a brand?
can you define the question a little sharper? You're going all over the place there.
I meant to say, while the cool part was needed in Tata's, I think in the recent scenario of Volkswagen, the environmental issues that have been raised,
Right.
shouldn't Tata had also said something, because it's known for heavy vehicles, their trucks, their, other, even the other automobiles, they've always been in a bad
Jalna?
review for the environmental point.
Tata vehicles are never in the review for environmental pollution or anything. As a matter of fact, all of you intuitively nodded your heads when I said trust is something that is synonymous with us. Probably what we are not very good at doing is going out there and screaming from the rooftops, and probably that's something we will never be very good at doing, and I think it's nice to have people talk about you. What we're trying to ensure is that people talk the right things and the things we want them to say, right? Somewhere just being quiet lets people say anything that we want. We are a very responsible auto manufacturer, and honestly, by virtue of how we have lived in this country and have built and moved along with this country, should be testament to that.
Anyway, thank you all. I think all the panelists are here for some time, so if you want to, speak to them offline, I think they're happy to answer. Am I right? All of you are here? Yes, so please walk up and ask. Thank you so much, everybody.
I think the journey started almost maybe a couple of years back. The journey where we wanted to find someone whose ethos, work life, whose philosophy of life resonates with that of Tata Motors.
Tata Motors is transforming, and it was extremely important that the narrative that we actually take to communicate this message should resonate and should have authenticity.
We struck upon the best footballer this planet has ever known, none other than Leo Messi.
Tata Motors trabaja con pasión y con la ambición de intentar hacer las cosas cada día mejor, valores que también comparto.
When an opportunity like this comes along, you know that it's a once-in-a-lifetime piece. You know that you're never going to get a chance to do something like this again. To work with a legend like this, to work with two brands like this and bring them together.
When we got the brief for Messi to be the brand ambassador for Tata Motors, the first thing that hit us were the values that are common to both. What we found in common between the two was more than we could fit in one film actually. Both were almost matching souls. Messi coming from his humble background, Messi being completely in love with his passion for football, and with an ambition to get better and better. That's what we thought we should capture in this film. Our main task was to show the world what they share in common. A lot of brainstorming happened, a lot of to and forth happened. Finally come down to that one thing that we really liked. Tata Motors and Leo Messi both believe in changing the game. In fact, both believe in creating the game. That's what makes the fit very, very natural.
When you want to shoot with an ambassador like Messi, he is very well known for certain specifics. He's humble. He comes from a very, very, low-key ambient back there in Argentina, and all these, little insights about Messi are very much in common with the Tata brand.
We've had multiple nationalities, of course, collaborating on this project. It's like a huge, gigantic puzzle, and each piece actually has to come together to give this clear picture, and it had to work like clockwork.
Namaste, India.
For me, Lionel Messi has always been a great sports star. I follow him. I personally watch every game of his, and I'm pretty sure that there's something really, really special that's going to happen, and I'm lucky enough to be a part of it. We are on the verge of creating some history. It's always a struggle. You have a dream in your head, and then it's almost like somebody else is painting your dream.
The final product, it's going to be something we're all going to be proud of for the rest of our lives.
What you see behind me is actually a recreation of what would have been Leo's childhood. Humble beginnings. It's something that all of us can resonate with. If you will look at this campaign, the thing that comes out very strongly is that belief that what drives you from within is really what makes you great.
All right. Let's have a round of applause there, ladies and gentlemen. Well, as Delna had mentioned, it was about bringing the association to life, and we had also seen the making of the great. Before that, I'd also like to inform all of you that SMW Mumbai is trending in Mumbai on number 3. So keep those tweets coming using hashtag SMW Mumbai. On the other note, as Mr. Sandeep had also mentioned, well, we do have the augmented reality experience in store for all of you. So please be sure you go right there across and grab your photos with Leo himself. And all you got to do is tweet using hashtag Made of Great, using the handle @Made of Great. And you stand chance to win some branded merchandise from Tata Motors. So please be sure that you grab your pictures and tweet using hashtag Made of Great. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, we'll now march ahead with our next session. And this session actually focuses on next-gen social insights, technology, and strategies to connect authentically. Ladies and gentlemen, this evening we have the presence of one of Inc. magazine's top 100 leadership speakers, a 4-time TEDx speaker, international author, and Huffington Post contributor. Most importantly, he is also a passionate leadership expert on personal branding, networking, as well as social media. Let's have an enthusiastic round of applause. Please help me welcome our next speaker, Mr. Bobby Omar.
Thank you, thank you. Excellent, thank you. Whoa, that's nice and loud. All right, so before I even start, I'm very excited to be here because I'm from Canada. It's my first time in India. Oh, it's awesome, I love it. So I know, it's exactly right, India's great. I'm loving it, I've been here for 3 days, I've enjoyed it. So let me start off with a selfie, okay, because it's social media. So as soon as I say 1, 2, 3, you guys just yell out something like, I don't know, Hanji or Go India or whatever you want, okay? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, now let's see if this I can do better, okay? They were pretty good. Can you be louder? There's less of you, but I think you have the chance. Okay, here we go. On the count of 3, anything you want, okay? Hanji, I don't know, whatever, cricket! I mean, whatever you want to say. On the count of 3. Oh, wait, the lights are, okay. 1, 2, 3. Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. Great. All right, so, again, there's a lot I want to talk about. There's the agenda right there on the screen for you. I want to talk about thought leadership. I want to talk about how I got my social media growth. I'm going to give you some top 5 tips on Twitter mastery as well as tools for business growth. And also, whether you're an individual or whether you are a small business or whether you're a big business, hopefully the stuff I'm going to tell you today is going to help you. And my career path has been very diverse. I've been an entrepreneur, I've been an engineer, I've been a brand marketer. So I use that in everything that I talk about. And I'm a big believer in developing leadership, which is why I'm here. So let's talk first about thought leadership, because I think it's important to understand what that is. Anyone here heard the term thought leader? You've heard this? Hands, please. Okay, 3 people. Okay, so let's talk about what that is. Now, do you know, anyone recognize people on the screen? Yeah, so can you describe them in one word? I mean, do you know what they stand for? You think of Oprah, you might think of self-development. When you think of Jay-Z, you think of great music. When you think of Gary Vaynerchuk or Seth Godin, you think of tribal leadership. Now, these are all people that are considered thought leaders. Now, there's something about them that is the same. What is the same? Well, thought leadership has 3 main criteria or steps. Number 1, you have to learn to network authentically and build deep relationships and tons of connections. They all have that. Number 2, you have to be able to create and generate awesome ideas and content. So whether Oprah is putting out a book, or whether Seth Godin is doing a blog post, or whether Jay-Z is writing a really amazing song, they are creating content. And number 3, you have to master public speaking and communication skills. So that's talking on stage or also the written word. And so, for me, my thought leadership is based on what I create, who I connect with, and how much of an impact I have and how many more leaders I create. That's how I kind of think of thought leadership. Now, why is this important? You're probably asking yourself this. Well, the reason why it's important is because when you are seen as a thought leader, you are now seen as the expert with a solid reputation. You have a huge network, and you start to own the conversation. And when that happens, business revenue will then start to come to you. You will get paid at your tremendous value that you deserve, and you can build greater scale around your business. So thought leadership is a big part of how we build brands and how we build thought leadership via social media. And when I started my social media strategy back in 2011, it was actually the day I did my first TEDx talk. I only had 200 followers on Twitter, but I had a strategic plan to integrate it all together. And then within 4 years, I had 320,000 followers and 1,700 fans. My Facebook page, 35,000 blog post views. And so I built that up. And it's got me a lot of attention in terms of being an influencer and being a leadership influencer and lots of impressions, which is great. So how did I do this? This is what I want to share with you. And typically, we all have a vehicle that allows us to create that thought leadership. And for me, mine was Twitter. Yours might be Facebook. Yours might be Instagram. Someone else might be Pinterest. I met a girl at one of my events, and she actually had 4.5 million followers on Pinterest. That was her niche. Or if you're on something that's kind of losing its ground, like momentum, like Vine. But if you have 1 million followers on Vine, you might as well use that as or Google Plus, as your place. So I use Twitter, and this strategy here kind of outlines what I did. Now let's talk about, and again, I'm going to give you a lot of content. What I want you to do is I want you to take notes. I want you to have questions ready, and then after this is over, I'm going to be here the whole night, and you can ask me whatever you want. Okay? So the top 5 is, and I'm going to go through these one by one, but here's the 5 that we're going to talk about. The first one, align with the culture. The culture of Twitter is all about thought leadership. So when you want to get the best politicians, the best athletes, the best brands, the best motor vehicle brands, the best soccer players, the best scientists, like Kiran Shah, they are on Twitter. They are sharing articles, blog posts, videos, just words of wisdom on there. And that's where people go for thought leadership. Number 2 is being accessible. So you want to be accessible. And Twitter has this thing where anyone can be accessible. So, hey, there's Sachin Tendulkar. He's a fantastic cricket player. If you want to say hello, you say, hey, hello, Sachin, how are you? And you can do that on Twitter. He's not your Facebook friend, I'm sorry. He's not your LinkedIn contact, sorry. But you can tweet him, hey, how's it going? That accessibility makes people, it feels good, right? You can say, hey, you're great, or how could you have done that? In that last game, you could yell at him if you want on Twitter, which is great. And then finally, it's responsiveness. When you want to find out about something happening right away at this very instant in the world, like Social Media Week Mumbai, you don't go to Google anymore. I mean, you go to Google to search for something, but you're looking for an article that was already written. If you want something right away, boom. When they scored the goal in the World Cup, Germany, that very instant, someone tweeted, goal! And someone tweeted, and someone probably shared a photo. Someone shared a video. But right away, people are talking about it instantly. It even also happens when there's, bad things happen in the world, where people will tweet about this stuff and people get information via Twitter. So it's a very, very responsive tool. Twitter, people respond right away. Facebook, they respond that day. LinkedIn, they may respond anywhere from 1 week to 2 months. Depends, right? So that's why Twitter is so powerful for people. So when you're on Twitter, you have to align with the culture. Number 2, you want to leverage influencers. Influencers are people who have a lot of followers and a lot of traction and get a lot of interest with what they're doing. So here's a little. This is me tweeting with Ted Coyne, who has like 450,000 followers. He's also tweeting with me and tomorrow night Sean Gardner, who actually spoke at Social Media Week before. And we're just having conversations. But what's happening is by engaging them and promoting their stuff, they now want to promote my stuff. Similarly, Jefferson Boggs, he has 600,000 followers. And so by engaging him and sharing my content with him, he's willing to share my meme, which is great because that brings me more traction. And then also here, Lolly Daskal has 1 million followers in New York City, and Sean Gardner has 850,000. Again, I'm connected with them and talking to them. If you do that and get their attention, again, because the culture is responsive and accessible, the really good brands will actually talk to you, which is a good thing. And so, I leverage, and so Sean Gardner, having created that connection with him on Twitter, I was able to get him to come to Toronto, Canada, which is where I'm from, to actually speak at my event that I ran. So you can leverage influencers to gain more traction. So you want to tweet me? Someone's already tweeted me today. Did I reply? I'll try to, try to reply to them all. Number 3, Twitter mastery. Build awareness, not transactions. All right, so you want to build awareness on social media and on Twitter. You want to create a conversation and get the conversation started. There's a great case study with Dave Carroll where there was a failure with United Airlines. And essentially, United Airlines broke his guitar. They didn't respond to his messages, so he recorded a video and then put it on YouTube, tweeted like crazy, and pretty soon 15 million hits later, and then he got 3 songs, a book, and now he's a very successful recording artist. And the estimated cost for United Airlines was $160 million. So you've got to be responsive. Now, how about a positive one? Well, there's a Canadian airline where I'm from called WestJet Airlines, and they did a Christmas miracle video, and they basically had Santa go to a poor country and they all delivered presents to people, and it was a beautiful video, and they shared it on Twitter, shared it everywhere again. And then again, 14 million views, and the growth of subscribers, email subscribers. That's important because email subscribers are how you create transactions, right? So, social media builds awareness, but email transactions and live and phone calls is how you create the transaction. So they got 320% growth in just 3 days, okay? Because the thing is, conversation is happening among members of your marketplace, whether you like it or not. So if you want to have great marketing, you need to encourage those conversations. I mean, the great example from Tata Motors just before, that was amazing, having them submit all that stuff for Lionel Messi. That was amazing. So number 4, strategic balance of content. Now, first off, content, if you're going to share content, it's not my presentation, but there's 4 things it needs to do. It needs to either inform, educate, entertain, or inspire. Inform, educate, entertain, or inspire. But at the same time, you can't just say, I had a banana for breakfast, because again, no one cares. So you have to pick up something. Maybe your mom probably cares. Okay, she's like, oh, my son had okay, very good, banana, good, okay. So my mom will love that. But you want to have a strategic balance of your content. Now, if you look at my content today, there's stuff that I posted myself. There's things that I posted about myself. There's things I posted about other people. I also retweeted people. My typical rule is 40% my content, 40% other people's content, and 20% retweets. But again, it really depends on where you are and where you're starting. But it's a good rule. Because you can't be talking about yourself all the time. Hey, look at me, I'm so awesome. I have some great thoughts. Share some other things that people care about. And then number 5, leverage the best technology tools. Why? There are 4 reasons. Number 1, you want to automate because, you know what, I'm not a machine, and there's a lot of work to do, and it's very, very difficult. So automation can help you save a lot of time. Number 2, you want to accelerate. Accelerate your brand and get the word out there about who you are and what you're doing. You can also amplify your reach of who you're trying to reach and to your target. And number 4, you want to achieve those results, whether it's awareness or some sort of movement to another transaction on a separate website. So, align with the culture, leverage influencers, build awareness and conversations, a strategic balance of content, and leveraging the best technology tools. Let's talk about the tools. So what are my favorite strategies, technologies, and tools? Well, there's 5 things you do. One is creation of content, curation of content integration, community building, and connection. See all the C's there? I did that on purpose. I know, so clever, right? Clever, he's from Canada. Okay, Canadian. So let's start with the first one. Creation of content. Again, thought leaders create amazing, kick-ass content. So I blog for Huffington Post, and I actually did a post for our new Prime Minister that just got elected, and it actually became a featured blog post there in the bottom right. So again, blogging is one thing you do. I also wrote a book, so I write a book too, so that's another thing that gets content out there. Pretty soon, I'm now creating online modules and training programs, and then I'm also doing webinars. And these are all examples of content that you create to get attention and get traction. And what does the data say? I mean, if you like data, data says photos shared are 2 times more effective. Videos shared are 12 times more effective. Here's some more data. 82% of employees say they trust a company more when the CEO and leadership team communicate via social media. B2B companies with blogs generate 67% more leads per month on average than non-blogging firms. So you need to be blogging. And a mere 31% of brands worldwide earned a passing grade for the effectiveness of the website content according to an analysis. So content is an opportunity for you guys to really set yourselves apart from everybody else, whether it's for you individually or for your business or for your team. The second piece is what we call curation of content. You want to actually take all the content that's out there and maybe find a way to curate it for your target audience. Now, I typically use Hootsuite to do that, which works really well for me. And I have a certain target and a certain objective and brand promise that I want to deliver to people. But curating that content is, again, a way to really tell a story about who you are. Another tool you might use is Buffer. They do a really good job of they actually curate content for you, again, based on your target, based on your brand. So again, we talked about brand. For me, a brand is my promise to my audience. So knowing what your brand is, you can then create the best content for your target audience. Because curation is a new creation. Sometimes people struggle with creating content, so what they do is they curate content in a very, very nice way, and that becomes their new creation. Because people like that, right? a perfect example would be like a blog post like 17 best quotes for shoe salesmen. Not that I would do it for shoe salesmen, but and then, I'm a shoe salesman. I'm a shoe salesman. I want to click on that. Wow. Oh, okay, you must be the change. Good quote. I like that. So that would be an example of curated content. Content integration. So, they talk about integration on stage, which is great. Integration, again, saves time. Integration takes 3 or 4 different levers together into one really, really powerful launching pad. So like, if I throw a ball, it'll go far. But if I take 4 people and we all throw that ball, it'll go even further. And that's really what it's about. Instagram is a good example because who here's on Instagram? Instagram? All right, let's connect, right? You taking pictures? Okay, make sure you take some pictures. And again, Social Media Week Mumbai and Made of Great, 2 hashtag, okay? So, Instagram's really good because when you share a post, now I shared a few posts. I shared my breakfast. See, that's funny. But, I did that for my mom because she stalks me on Instagram and Facebook, which is fine. But, when you're about to share it, the thing is you create the content and then you can right away share on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Flickr, Foursquare. I mean, it's changed a little bit now, but the point is you can share on 4 or 5 different platforms at the same time. That saves a lot of time. You can do the same thing with Hootsuite. You can do the same thing with Buffer. So content integration is a great way to go with technology and tools. And social share and follow buttons on your website is a great way to, again, create content integration. You have a social login. Some people don't like to share their email. 73% of people prefer to log in with a Facebook site or a LinkedIn site. So have that on your website. Social videos are actually way more powerful. And social proof. 79% of consumers trust social proof as much as they do personal recommendations. So having that social proof on your blog post, on your Facebook page, is a great way to, again, create that integration with your content. The next thing is actually community building. And so one of the big tools I use is building communities. Now, you can build a community with a Facebook group. You can build a community with a LinkedIn group. Now, you can also build a community on Twitter with what are called tweet chats. Has anyone here ever participated in a tweet chat? Okay, a few people. Great. Great. Well, which one have you done? I'm just curious. No, say it louder, please. Okay, SMW Forum. And what about you? What did you? Twitter's Matter. Okay, great. Okay, there's hundreds out there. Okay, thousands. Okay, so I have one that I do as well. Actually, it's happening in Canada while I'm here, and I canceled it because I'm here, because I want to be with you guys. So, but normally because it's 11 a.m. normally. So it's called Power of Connection Chat. Now what's great about it is that you spend 1 hour per week and you ask like 8 to 10 questions, and either you can share your expertise for the 8 to 10 questions, or you can crowdsource incredible information and feedback about your customer or about your job or your target or whatever it is that you want. And you get, normally in the tweet chats I do, there's usually 700 to 1,000 tweets and about, 40 million, sometimes 50, sometimes 60 million impressions, reaching 1 million followers. It's a really, really powerful way to engage people. So I love that as a strategy. Because community will build very fast if you lead, right? You have a brand, your own brand or a company brand. If you lead the conversation, remember, thought leadership is about owning the conversation. So leading the community is actually the way to go versus being a follower, being part of a group. And then the 5th part, which is really important, is called connection. I mean, you want to create and build authentically with, and again, they talked about that a little bit earlier. How to create connection and build authentically. Involve people in what it is you're doing. When you involve them, they understand you better, and also you understand them better. And the ultimate goal with social media connection is to actually engage in real life people via social media to then bring them back to in real life. And let me show how this works. This is kind of a networking thing too, but it also works for business. The idea is that there's a spectrum that you see people. So in real life, here we are, I meet you. Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. How are you? Okay, let's add each other on LinkedIn. Nice to meet you. Hi, cameraman. Nice to meet you. And then we add each other. So now we meet each other at an event, and then we add ourselves on LinkedIn. Okay, hey, that's a nice profile. Some of you add me on Facebook, which, I usually reserve Facebook for friends, just so try to get to know me first. And then we become LinkedIn friends. Now, there's 2 things that happen. Either you meet someone in real life and then you add them on LinkedIn, or you tweeted them, or you saw them on LinkedIn and you added them and you said something very nice that they were willing to actually accept your LinkedIn request, and now you're there. Now the goal is to engage with content and follow-ups and creating value, and then ultimately get them to that one-on-one meeting or the in-person meeting. And when you do that, that's where you start to create really good transactions and connections for yourself. So understanding that spectrum is important. Leverage the spectrum and the entry points. And some other tools I use to create connection. I mean, one of the tools I use is called Tweepy. Tweepy is a great way for me to target all my followers as well as see who's doing what followers I have. I can target specific followers. So for example, let's say I want to, I want to target followers of Tata Motors. I can totally do that because I love Tata Motors. See, I'm totally promoting them now, see? I'm just doing that because why not, right? I'm on stage, I want to promote everybody, it's good. I promote Mumbai, I'll promote Mumbai, it's great, So Tweep is really powerful that way, it has a lot of really great functionality and tools. Another one that works really well is called Manage Flitter. Again, it allows you to target different things. You can actually see some of your accounts that are inactive, which ones are spammy, and maybe get rid of them or unfollow them because again, they're not that great. Because I mean, like if you are going to unfollow people, it should be people that are not active or spammy, right? Well, what's the point of that, right? So this tool allows you to see through that and get to it. And a secret tip for you, it automatically lets you select 100 people, but if you want to select 1,000 people, you can actually download a Google little code. Just Google it, and there's a little code that allows you to unselect 1,000 contacts at the same time. Okay? I know I got lots of tips here for you. Another one, Community. This is a good one because it sends automatic gratitude tweets to people who are part of your network, who are the most engaged, who retweeted most of your stuff automatically without you doing it, which is awesome. So in 1 week, someone tweets your stuff 3 or 4 times, and you want to thank them. I mean, you don't have time when you have, I have 325,000 followers. Even if you have 1,000, it gets hard, right? So this out on a weekly basis, or you can set the systems there. So that's a really, really good tool. And again, gratitude is really important because it's a big part of social media. I mean, I think gratitude is something, it's the best follow-up. Do it now, do it live, do it often. So you should tweet about that, thank people. Gratitude is so important. I think it's a really big part of the social media thing. And then if you want to create and build authentically, videos. Video is the future? No, it's the future now. It's happening now. People are sharing videos. I share videos of my workouts and my TEDx talk and things like that. And the data tells you that by 2017, video will account for 69% of all consumer internet traffic according to Cisco. That's only a couple years away. Wow. On top of that, 70% of people view brands in a more positive light after watching interesting video content from them. I mean, did we not see a Tata Motors commercial? Well, hey, I feel more love for them now. See, that's how it works. And and another research said that if a picture paints 1,000 words, then 1 minute of video is worth 1.8 million words, according to Forrester Research. Wow, that's a lot. Okay, so Tata Motors already got a couple million words up. That's great. So one of the tools I use is Periscope. Anyone here on Periscope? Oh wow, that's exciting. It's a hot new thing, right? It's only been around since April, May. So fantastic. And I got to tell you, my experience there has been amazing. I mean, I've only been on there for about 2-3 months. I've already have almost 3,000 followers. And truthfully, and I don't have quantitative data, but qualitative data. Let me share with you. When I tweet something and it gets a lot of traction on Twitter with 300,000 followers, I might get 100, 150 tweets max, right? But on Periscope, when I do a session with only 2,000 people, and I just spend 10-15 minutes talking about networking or personal brand or social media, I get up to 60 to 70 people tuning into the broadcast. That's actually really good. If I stayed longer, I might even get more, but that's actually very, very strong. And the reason why they like it is because it's live. People love having live access to you. Hey, Bobby, you're talking to me directly right now. Oh my gosh, I love that. Versus you send me an email and I respond later on, or you send me a tweet and maybe I'll respond. But with this, it's really strong. And it's very strong ROR. Now, we talked about ROI, which is return on investment. ROR is return on the relationship. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a fantastic relationship with your target audience and trying to connect with them. And this is a fantastic tool. I love it. I'm actually going to do a Periscope after this talk out there with the PR guys. So it'll be a lot of, but you pay attention to what's going on here, okay? There'll be a recording of it, okay? All right. So, creation of content, curation of content, content integration, community building, and then connection. Now, why does business need to connect authentically and how? I mean, so that's the last piece. Connection, I think, you know, my first TEDx talk was on the power of connection and how to connect deeply and authentically with people. And we've heard, I mean, I love the panel because they talked about many of the things that I would actually talk about, which is about connection. You know, and the reason why it's important is because people, customers, and businesses, and all your potential clients prefer to buy from those they trust. And it doesn't matter if you're a business or a friend. I mean, if you're a good friend and you're trustworthy, like let's say you're very trustworthy, your friends talk to you about their problems. Oh, help them with problems, you know, like they trust you. That's why authentic connection is so important. And the science of connection is this. I mean, in 10 minutes of social media time, your oxytocin levels actually rise as much as 13%, which is a hormonal spike equivalent to some people on their wedding day. Wow, okay. That kind of blew my mind when I read that. Whoa, Facebook, okay. Now, sometimes I do, that's fine. 78% of people find that connection actually strengthens relationships, and 62% find social media connection is creating social currency for themselves. So there's also a scientific reason to be part of connection. Now, we talk about authentic connection. Everyone talks about it. You know, we talk about thought leadership. We talk about synergy. We talk about brands. We talk about authenticity. What does that even mean? A lot of people don't know. And why is it important? So let me share a few thoughts on this. Authenticity is about real human beings. And it doesn't matter whether it's me and my family with my beautiful beige kids. Love them. They're great. Or it's someone like Marilyn Monroe. I was trying to find a picture of Aishwarya Rai, but I couldn't find a good one for this. But yeah, it doesn't matter whether you're a famous celebrity or whether you're just a regular person. We are all real human beings. We have hopes and fears and good days and bad days and darkness and light. And if we can understand that and respect that, we'll actually do a much better job of trying to authentically connect with them, from both ways. Honesty and vulnerability. Being honest about who you are and what you believe, and being willing to share vulnerability about what you're struggling with. There's a great TEDx talk by Brené Brown on vulnerability and how it creates connection. To me, being vulnerable is a fantastic tool. And one of the things I did when I started as a motivational speaker, I travel around North America and I speak. It's my first time in India. But normally you always talk about how things are so great and yeah, life is awesome. But you know what? Sometimes life sucks. It really does. And it's hard. And so at one point, my friend and he started talking about his bipolar issues, and I started talking about my struggle with diabetes and my health and my weight. You can't tell, but I've actually lost 40 pounds in the last 2 years, but I'm still working on it. In fact, I was afraid to wear the suit today. I brought a bigger suit too, and I brought this suit. I was afraid to wear it because I was feeling vulnerable. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I was feeling vulnerable wearing this suit because it's so snug, But I find that when I share that stuff and I share being vulnerable, it resonates and connects with people because it's real. I mean, I do struggle with my weight. I do miss my kids. Like I have things that no one's perfect. We all struggle, and I think it's important to understand that struggle is real. We all have that, and that's how we connect. Okay. Stories, values, and needs. I mean, right now there's a lot of stuff going on in the world that people are struggling, and you're hearing stories about really tough times around the world, and we're also hearing about and talking about our values, about who we are and what we believe and what we stand for. And there are needs here, there are needs elsewhere. And that aspect and understanding that is another big part of connection because you're trying to help those people out as well as, understand them. And for my TEDx talk, the main thing I tell people is that if you care deeply and genuinely about a belief, a cause, an idea, an organization, or people, and you communicate that proactively in a very, very positive way and really get to the root of it, not the surface stuff, you will then create a deep and powerful connection. And when you create a deep and powerful connection, you create a community. And when you create a powerful community, that's when you create change. That's how you do it. Connection creates change. And authentic connection is about your voice, your story, your brand. So if whoever you are, what is your voice? Social media gives you a voice. What is your story? What is your brand? I want to know what it is. But you should know what it is too. You should know what your brand is. If you don't know what your brand is, invest the time to learn that and figure it out. It really will help you. Because once you get there, then you're able to do the following. You're able to understand the brand of other people. Right? I know my brand. It's about connection and authenticity and being a people person and helping people out. I'm more likely to understand their brand. I'm able to give others an authentic voice because when you tweet me or when you talk to me, I will invest and I will promote you and I will talk to you and invest in you. And you can start to invest in everyone's story. That's what authentic connection is really all about. Now, in terms of a top 5, how to create authentic connection, this is the last piece I want to get into. Number 1, know your brand promise, your vision, your purpose, and why. Your brand promise. So what is it you promise to people? I promise to engage you enthusiastically. I promise to listen to what you have to say. And I promise to offer the best solution I can to ramp up your brands. That's my promise to you. What's your vision? What's your vision for the world? My vision for the world is I want to help lost leaders get unlost on whatever path they're on. So whether it's a leadership path or a business path or even a social media path. What is your purpose? Because the moment you know your purpose, and you know that purpose is going to make you deliriously happy the rest of your life, you want the rest of your life to start right away. It's very exciting. It's very, like, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm very excited. I'm very passionate because I found my purpose, and it's basically to talk to you guys and help you guys out, and I love it. It's a lot of fun. And then there's the why statement. Anyone know what that is? Anyone heard of the why statement? Not very well known, but the why statement is by a TEDx talk by Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K. And what it is that the why statement basically tells people why you do what you do, as opposed to what you do and how you do it. Start with why you do it, because that'll drive everything else that you're doing. The why statement actually identifies the pain point that people feel. The why statement identifies the target. The why statement identifies the target, the problem you're trying to solve. And when you know that, it works really well. So my why statement is there are lost leaders everywhere. Everyone feels lost, personally, professionally. And so everything I do, from my content, my speaking, my workshops, my training, my coaching, everything is about helping that why. And when you know that, again, it really feeds into your purpose and your vision statement. And so that, to me, is a great way to connect. The first way to connect is connect with yourself so that you connect with everybody else. Next one. I'm a big believer in interactions. Love and gratitude and leadership in all interactions. Yeah, love and gratitude and leadership in all. What does that even mean? If someone tweets me, let's say she tweets me and she says something not very nice. Bobby, your talk was, rather dry. Oh, I'll say, no, I thank you. I'll say, well, thank you for your feedback. I really appreciate it. I'm going to try to work better. Now, what I did there was I responded with love, kindness, walk with love. Number 2, I was grateful that she actually took the time to tweet me. And number 3, leadership. I took that as a feedback to evolve, learn, and grow. And I do that with every single interaction, even when there's haters. Because I get haters on Twitter for sure, okay? And they just say the most random thing, which makes no sense. But you know what? I still respond, most times. So again, everything you do, from interactions live or online, if you want to connect to people, really try to use love in your words and how you behave. Have gratitude for the moment that you're with that person. And then leadership, see how you can actually teach them or learn from them to evolve and grow for the better. Because that's what leadership is. Number 3, authentic connection requires you to be responsive, be accessible, and be helpful. Right? So you're on social media, you're on Twitter or Facebook. If people are asking you questions or want your help, be responsive. Respond to their messages. One of the things with email nowadays is that people don't respond to emails. We all suffer from email exhaustion. But I respond to every email. In fact, my inbox is less than 10. Well, actually, it's gone up since I've been in Mumbai because I've been traveling and having fun. I checked out the Gate of India. It was a lot of fun. Good times. But I always respond. I try to respond to every tweet. It's a little bit hard, but I try to. And what's important is that you try to do it as opposed to do every single one. So being accessible means having people approach you. So after this talk, I've already encouraged you to come talk to me. Come talk to me. I'll be here all night. I won't be here tomorrow, so please come talk to me tonight if you have questions. Number 4, avoid trolls, leverage the haters and critics, and get feedback. So what that means is, if you really want to make a connection with people, you have to be willing. Trolls are people who are just spewing hate and nonsense that make no sense. You don't have to respond to them. Or if you do, the rule I would say is either respond once or nonce. Okay, once or nonce you can respond to them. One time or no times. But even haters, when they don't like something, they are people that what you want to do is you want to find out why. Because once you find out why, then you can determine whether it makes sense or not, or whether there's something you can extract from it from a learning perspective. And that's what I mean by getting feedback. Because what I'll find is, and I've had this several times, and I wanted to show an image of one, but I've had people who've been haters about some political issue that I posted or some other thing that I talked about. And then I start asking them questions and engaging them, and pretty soon I have them come around. And it's very empowering. I love that. Like, it usually takes like 6 or 7 tweets, but they're like, yeah, I never thought that way. I really appreciate you taking the time because you have so many followers. And so you can actually do a really good job of connecting with people by actually engaging them. And just find out why. Listen to them and find out why they feel that way. Get to the root of the emotion. And then finally, the number 5 way to get authentic connection is, again, to share vulnerability. And again, Brené Brown did this TED Talk on the power of vulnerability. And she has data that supports the fact that the more you're willing to share vulnerability and to share that you struggle and to share the dark stuff, the more powerful connection you will have. In fact, there's an idea that we should actually share sometimes the things that we're ashamed of. And shame is a powerful motivator and a connector of people. Now, a lot of people, some brands don't want to do that. It's not like, a big global brand like Walmart's going to say, oh, we're shameful of this. Like they may or may not. But for individuals and small businesses, but even other brands, if you have the courage to share vulnerability, I guarantee you that these people, the people in your tribe, they will respond. They'll respond in a way that's compelling because they will trust you and they'll want to work with you, they'll want to talk to you, they'll want to do business with you. So that's why vulnerability is so important. Okay, so that's my top 5 for how to create authentic connection. And the last piece I want to talk about is how I build thought leaders. I mean, we've already talked about it, but typically the first thing you do is you know your expertise or your brand. It doesn't matter, again, whether you're an individual or a small business or a large business. What is your expertise or brand of thought leadership? Then you atomize and distribute the content, whatever it is. Speak, blog, videos, ebooks, webinar, whatever you want to do. And then finally, you engage and follow up. And that's the general guidelines for how you build your own thought leadership or how you build your own company's thought leadership. And you keep doing that over and over again. And you mix, you monitor your results and you adjust things as they go along. But that's typically the general way to do it. So some final thoughts for my talk today. This is a great quote. You have to be different, great, or first. I love that. Different in how you approach people, different in what you say, different in what you do, different in where you connect on social media. Great content, great responsiveness, great accessibility, great branding. Or the first one. I was one of the first one in my community to go on Periscope. Great, love it. I was one of the first ones to go on LinkedIn. I was one of the first million users of LinkedIn because I saw the opportunity. So if you see something that's great, you know what? Jump on board, test it out. Because if you're there first, you can actually make a great killing on that app. And this is great. Focus on how to be social, not on how to do social. It's right there on the wall there. Look at that, on the pillar. I love it. Jay Barry's awesome. That's great. You should check out some of his podcasts. Really good stuff. And then finally, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. If you want to be great as a thought leader and as a business, as a brand, you have to get out there and start and make the most of it. Because no one's going to do it for you. And I know a lot of you have social media experience, and maybe you're still trying to figure out how to make it even bigger and better, but having a plan and working on that plan is going to make you greater than you can possibly imagine. And if you need my help, ask me questions. I'm happy to help you guys out. So that's the end of my talk. This is my contact information. If anybody wants to contact me, if they want to tweet me, they want to email me, you can connect me on LinkedIn or Twitter and my Facebook biz page, not my Facebook friend page because that's only for people I know. But hey, if you get to know me, we can be friends. That'd be good, right? So I'll be here the whole night. And again, remember guys, connection takes work, but connection is one of the best ways to ramp up your thought leadership and really make a difference in your lives, but more importantly, in the lives of other people, all right? Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Bobby. Can we have the podium mic on, please? All right, check. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, one thing was for sure. When Bobby took the selfie, we had our smiles on. But when he started to speak, our smiles became wider indeed. So can we have a round of applause one more time for Bobby as well? Thank you so much. We thoroughly enjoyed all that you shared, all the perspectives, all the insights indeed. And I'm sure we're going to have a really engaging conversation over drinks and cocktails later. Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, it's also time to march ahead with our next session. And I'd also like to put a humble request to all our speakers as well as moderators. We're a little pressed for time, so I'm going to request our speakers and moderators to please be sure that they can complete this session on time. Right now, I might be sounding like the Twitter 140 characters, not giving you enough space, but that's what a timekeeper does. Moving on to our next session, it's a panel discussion on women hackers on social, #SMHacker. Firstly, I'd like to invite on stage our session moderator, the founder and CEO of R Square Consulting, Mr. Rohit Verma, to please come on stage, and let's accompany with a round of applause. Well, joining Mr. Rohit Verma on the dais, I'd like to invite our panel member. May I please invite Ms. Manasi Zaveri. Well, she's considered as India's first parenting blogger, and in fact, she's combined her passion for digital medium and her parenting journey to having started the kidsstoppress.com. Can we please invite Ms. Manasi Zaveri on the dais? Let's have a round of applause. Moving on to our next fabulous speaker, well, the founder of Panache, India's premier personal branding company. Well, she's also a columnist at the Economic Times and a personal brand strategist for the CXOs. Please let me welcome Tanvi Bhatt on the dais. So with a warm round of applause, everyone. Our final speaker for the session, ladies and gentlemen, somebody who comes with a very, very fabulous 17 years of teaching experience in the area of marketing and advertising. Well, the Associate Professor Marketing at Mudra Institute of Communications, Ahmedabad, Micah. Let's have a huge round of applause for Falguni V. Oza. Let's get this session started. Over to you, Rohit.
Hello. Thank you for joining us on this evening. And I have got three different kind of people in front of me. Falguni is there. She has been teaching marketing for so many years. Tanvi is there. She has been educating people on the importance of personal branding. And then Mansi is here, who has been blogging about parenting. So my first question, which is there in my head, and I wanted to ask you, do you think people on social media are gender biased, which means that women get more response than men?
Okay, I think you are taking it too positively here, and I think it's sounding very easy. The first thought for the gender biasness is the AIB Creep Kawali, if you have heard of, was made for after seeing what happens to women on social. So there are a lot of people who are, backbiting, who are pushing themselves towards us. So there's a lot of traffic there, which is unwanted. And yes, people are gender biased. It's not so easy for us to create our own space on social.
What's your take on this?
I would not agree with that. I don't think people are gender biased on social media. I think the only challenge is there are more men on social today than women. Probably that is being perceived as a gender bias. So tomorrow when we have the 50-50 ratio, I don't think gender bias would be an issue at all.
But don't you think you get more response when you put an update on a Twitter or on a Facebook? So there are so many followers, and as you said, that largely men. So you get a lot of responses.
No, I haven't noticed any specific gender bias in my personal case at least.
I would agree with you and disagree with you because I think it depends on which medium today you're talking about and what kind of content that you're posting. Of course, if you're talking about Kim Kardashian and posting some stuff, then of course people are going to be biased. But if you are posting something which is of relevance or which is in your domain, then I don't think the gender bias really exists. But at the same time, like I was discussing with the other panelists, that yes, people do perceive that women should only be talking about X, Y, and Z, and men should only be talking about A, B, C. And if you tend to cross domains at some point in time, then they would question that, how is she talking about a car? Is car really her domain? Why is she talking about it? It doesn't mean that just because you're talking about parenting and blogging in that space, you don't drive cars or you're not a consumer of a car. So I think that there are both sides, to that question.
Awesome. So from there, I want to go to our next question, which is to do with policing on social and stalking on social. So I really want to have inputs from you guys. Have you faced any of these issues? If you have faced, how you have handled it? Tanvi, maybe you can start on this.
Very honestly, I haven't faced stalking, at least, on social media at least, to begin with. Yeah, on and off, you do have certain shreds of criticism, but that's a part of game when you're in the public domain, when you're voicing your opinions, especially sometimes being a young woman in the so-called industry of leadership and thought leadership in a country like India where, gray is still valued over guts. I have had certain moments of hesitancy, doubts in my community where people really don't want to buy the value that you're bringing on the table, and they look at you with those
skepticism eyes. But apart from that, I don't think I've had any unpleasant experiences on social media, at least.
If anytime you have felt it, so how did you handle it? For example, you put an update and then people started trolling on you.
That's something. I've never had trolls on social media on my case.
I think, neither of us have really faced any ill experiences to dissuade us from doing that, but I think people will always have an opinion, and because you're part of an influencer community, people will always have a point of view on what you say. So I think that's good, because that means that they are taking you seriously sometimes, or most of the times, because they believe that you stand for something, and when you're taking a stance, they believe that your stance is right. So in that sense, I would think that when people agree or disagree with you, when you are in the influencer platform, it sometimes, without getting nasty and, without trolling somebody, I think that's fine.
So what's your take means when you look at social policing? How do you handle it? I mean, do you agree to it? It should be there? Should we manage in some different ways? What's your take on it?
See, I personally think, at least in India, most of the social moral policing happens in the community of religion and politics. As far as you present a sensible forefront in your personal views and opinions, you are not offending anybody. I don't see why you would invite social moral policing, at least. If you respect others, you'll deserve your respect.
I also think from day one it is very important to make it clear that though you are on social media, it's your private space. So what you are saying are your thoughts. You stand by it. They are your opinions. And we have to be strong about it. That's number one. But about stalking, your earlier question, if I may talk about it, there are times when people don't know when to cross the limits. So because public life comes with a cost. So when you're in the public radar, there are people who are following you, there are people who are chatting with you. And I remember someone's chat, status message read as online but not always available. So there I think you will have to tackle it your own way. You will have to either, in a very mature way, stop conversations with a group of people with whom you are not wanting to go ahead. And I think the final resort comes with blocking, which you would avoid till the last line is crossed.
Okay, this is for the audience. Audience, anybody wants to ask any question on the specifics what we are discussing, please feel free to ask. You don't need to wait for the end of the session to ask these questions. So please feel free, you can ask any questions, and it'll be nice if you are also getting involved in the whole discussion.
I have to disagree with Falguni in some way when you're saying that, when you're on social, you have to draw your personal line or personal boundary. You're on social because social has no boundaries. So you cannot say that that's my personal space. You define your personal and professional space very clearly, because when you are on social, you have to be, like the previous speaker said, you have to be accessible, and you have to be open to criticism or appreciation or whatever else that comes.
I didn't mean that. Being open, being accessible, being available are the three rules which are, very finely laid out for social. What I meant was, I would stand by my thoughts and my opinions. We can agree to disagree. Like how in classrooms it's now, it's cool to agree to disagree because there are people coming with different perspectives. And perspectives are to be appreciated, but you stand by your own thoughts. That is where the privacy comes in, not about not being available.
So let me share a very interesting anecdote on the ideology of agree to disagree and its power on social. How many of you all in this room know a gentleman called Robin Sharma? Most of you all? The self-development guru of the world? Yes? Okay. How many of you all in this room know a guy, an Indian, called Gautam Ghosh?
A few do.
Not very many. He's considered as one of the most proficient and popular bloggers from the HR universe in the Indian context. What happened a couple of weeks ago is he responded to some piece of advice being told out by Robin as usual with his own say, his own point of view on it. And he was blocked from further communication with Robin Sharma's social media profiles. Enough said.
There's another question which I definitely want to ask you guys is, all women, do you think you guys are as you want to be on social? Which means that are you really as you are, rather than trying to portray something else? So, or you feel that people will be judgmental, so that's the reason you want to have a different phase, or you want to have a different tonality in your communication, or you want to do it in a different way altogether?
I think the biggest rule of being social is being real. Because it takes no time for people to figure out that there are two different personas that you're talking, or you are actually a different person while your social media profile is a different person. You don't want to be that teenager who just succumbed to the social media pressure and just gave up and deleted all the accounts one fine day. You know, you really don't want to be in that space or going through that phase of life. So I think the biggest, the biggest learning or biggest thumb rule I think of social is to be real and be authentic.
What I really loved about Bobby's previous presentation, that the focus was on being authentic, being yourself. That's the first rule that we evangelize when we talk about building the brand. It's all about authenticity. It's all about celebrating who you are in your real life as a person. Social media just gives you a more visible platform to celebrate your uniqueness, your dreams, your thought leadership, everything that you are as a person. And in that journey of yours, what you are trying to do to create a deeper impact in your respective communities. So being authentic, being yourself, being unique, whatever weird, wacky traits that you bring on the table, I think you need to celebrate and revel in that instead of trying to be another Me Too in the sea of corporate penguins that we have today.
I completely agree with my co-panelist here, because the 3 tips that I have been giving to young people who are doing startups in the space of digital is be real, be fast, and be there. You cannot respond after 5 days, 10 days, and be real. Fake identities and fake creations on social media have a very short life. It doesn't have a very long-term existence. So I think if we take social media again as a space where you personally brand yourself, you need to know that what as a person are you known for? What are the 3 to 4 characteristics that define you? And those characteristics have to be your guiding point across, because genuineness counts. Anybody can see through you as a person.
I also think that in today's times when, where content and where information is so fast, you cannot afford to be fake because, just giving you an example, if I am saying that, I am a vegan and I don't eat dairy and I posted a dish which I think is vegan, when you don't have domain knowledge about that industry, and you're trying to post something about that, in less than a second, there will be something like, please stop bullshitting because that's not vegan. You know what I'm trying to say? That today in no time people are going to pull you down saying that, dude, what you're saying is crap. So you can't afford to be fake anymore.
But in social today, everybody's an influencer. Once you have got, say, X number of followers on, say, on Twitter or on Facebook, and you start talking about every possible subject. So it can be cars, it can be, as you said, food, or it can be about anything else. And there are brands who are engaging with the influencers. And he or she may not have that kind of domain knowledge. Just because the followers are there, you are talking about it. So in that way, I think it is critical for the brands also to understand is that how should I use the relevant influencers?
I think the same rule which we had in the first panel discussion, where how Messi was selected for the brand, there has to be an ideal brand celebrity fit. If it's established, it's going to be partnership and collaboration rather than a brilliant TV ad in the making. I think similarly, influencers and the brands also need to tie up in a strategic way, because domain expertise counts in the long run.
Okay, so I want to jump on my next question, which is, you all 3 have been using social media very, very effectively. So either it's for education, connecting with your students or the fellow professors or faculties. In a similar way, Tanvi has been talking to a lot of people and you have been very, very active on social. I want to really share with everybody is your experiences, your learnings, how it has helped in your respective careers and your preferred social media channel. Falguni, I think we can start with you.
Okay, so I think I teach to young people, and they live, breathe, and they sleep on social media. So the 22 to 25-year-olds in the most challenging profession of teaching them and creating attention spans. So I think I have used social media to understand the world that my students live in And it increases a lot of my credibility and relevance in class when I talk about, domain areas and social media expertise, which they belong to. It's very natural to them. And how I use it to my advantage, every course and curriculum that I run in across institutes and of course in MICA has a simultaneous Facebook page, which is a class build-up assignment page. So I catch them wherever they are to make them do the work that I want to. So I think it builds in a lot of relevance and they do it on their own. Which channels I like, which platforms I like, without any this thing, because I believe in being real. I love Facebook. I absolutely love Facebook. I've started loving Twitter, and I love Instagram and LinkedIn, third and fourth. LinkedIn would be fourth because maybe it's not as vibrant as I am on social media. So maybe the personality mismatch is where I am a little slow on LinkedIn. But yes, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I love being on these platforms.
That's very nice. Tanvi.
So for me and my business, I think the two most profitable platforms have clearly been LinkedIn and Twitter because my target audience is there. I personally enjoy using Twitter over LinkedIn because it allows me that, little room to really be myself. LinkedIn, I still have to put up, the suit boot persona that I need to carry in the corporate India. But Twitter, it's all about celebrating myself, my passions, my knowledge, my expertise, and really trying to inspire others to do the same. So yeah, at the same time, I do enjoy Instagram as well because it's really allowing me to show my community a little bit of rawness in my life. Obviously, nobody's life is perfect, neither is mine. So taking them behind the scenes of, what I do on a daily basis, what my life really looks like when I'm not on the stage talking and sharing my 2 cents. So for that aspect, I even enjoy Instagram a lot nowadays.
Okay, Mansi.
I think whichever medium you pick, you need to first identify, how much of your target audience is there. And this I'm talking from a purely business perspective. See which medium works for your business. See how much reach and numbers does that medium provide. You may personally like or dislike that medium, but the numbers at the end of the day need to deliver. So my personal dislike would be Facebook, but I know that everybody is on Facebook. And if I have to kind of sum up all the other social medias, they would all be subsets of Facebook. So today, you have to be present on that one little, on that large channel. But of course, see where, for example, for us, Pinterest works brilliantly because 90% of users of Pinterest are moms. And for me, that channel works absolutely brilliantly. I thought Snapchat would not be for parents, but like I was just telling you earlier, that when I downloaded Snapchat and I saw the number of average people between 30 to 40 on that platform, I was surprised. So I would say that pick a channel that works for your business very, very effectively, and at the same time try and define your business pages and your personal pages really, really well.
So, dear all, we have 3 SM hackers on the stage. If you guys want to ask any specific questions on anything which they are ready to answer, the floor is open for you guys.
May I?
Please go ahead.
I think as a woman who's on social media, I think I'm very much qualified to add my 2 bits here. I really want to meet people who retweet a lot just because I'm a woman, because I think I face more of the other kind of crowd than actually who like retweets and looks at my profile picture and starts following me. I think I work as hard to get my followers as anybody else. About the personal space debate, I'd like to say that I think as a woman, I need to be, that's my personal experience, I need to be extra careful about who I follow, who I talk to, who I let talk to me, because a lot of times in an online space, the wrong signal goes out. People feel, oh, she's chatting with me into the night, so all right, maybe there's some possibility. I don't know how men think, so you never know. So I think I have often found myself being more cautious than saying it's online, it doesn't matter. So I think that's important. Another thing that I want to talk about is the authenticity. I think if we were truly authentic on social media, we really wouldn't need so much of planning, because there are a lot of times when I really want to tell people to go, wherever, but I really can't because I have a profile to maintain and I'm there for a particular purpose. But Yeah, I think otherwise social media is a pretty safe space for women. But apart from that, I think yes, as women, we really need to be cautious about who we are indulging in. Thank you.
There's a difference between authenticity and being diplomatic. So,
You know, in your offline, you wouldn't really go and tell anybody, go wherever.
Anything else? Any other questions?
Well, my question is in two parts. Being an e-commerce marketer, personally, I feel when you said, like, there are too less of women and more of men on the digital domain. But yeah, like if you look at geographically, there are countries where, the ratio is quite equal. And considering a country like India, there's a lot of huge difference, like it's 70-30. But the main problem coming from an, e-commerce marketing platform, having women on the digital space has a huge economic factors. And we as people, we do need to promote this factor that more and more women need to be on the digital platform. So not just on the sales point of view or any other point of view, but in general. So, but yeah, I have seen over the years of experience that, women, there are two ways they go about it. Either initially they accept social media, due to some rebound reasons, they suddenly reject social media. And they suddenly, they never approach social media ever again. So there are many factors which is stopping women to accept social media and regularize them. Like we all come from an urban societal space, so being a part of the social media domain becomes a compulsion. But there are a lot of people that we can target and get them an access to be part of the social media. But there are a lot of factors that are stopping them from being social. So I would like to know, as women, like what are these factors that are stopping women from changing that gap from 30 to 50. So there are a lot of factors, but being a guy, I don't understand that. But if we do identify these problems, we can definitely solve them. Second question comes is feminism and the gender wars that generally happen, which is very regular these days. But I do believe that once it moves to 30 to 50, the gender war is only going to grow bigger and bigger. So yeah, that is there. It is quite fun actually. But even people need to understand that what is gender neutrality on the digital domain. So it goes both ways, understanding by guys and understanding by women as well. So how do we get the gender neutrality? Because I believe women are the driving factors of social media. Being a very niche on that domain in this country, still they drive the entire digital division. So if a woman talks about gender neutrality, the message will pass across to millions of people, considering that a guy like me would talk about gender neutrality and I would be completely ignored, sidelined. So yeah, women need to access digital domain and they need to talk about gender neutrality. You see, these are the two questions that I have. Like, how can women boost themselves? How can we have more women accessing the digital space and being part of that space and they understanding gender neutrality?
So let me take the first question. I think a lot of women get onto social media because it's the in thing, it's trending, everyone they know is there. But what they're getting is, why are they there? What is the purpose of being on social media? If you're a corporate executive or an entrepreneur or a solopreneur or a mompreneur, there's a defining purpose that you need to find, that what am I going to really achieve by investing my time, energy, dollars on social media marketing or just being active and visible on social media. So a lot of women today don't have that clarity of thought that what is it for me? How is social going to help me? How am I going to use social? What is the strategy which I have to build, develop and implement to ensure that social really does work for me? I'm able to leverage it for the objectives that I have outlined. Second thing, your second question, I think I would just like to tell you that as a woman, I would really admire you and respect you even more if, as a man, you would stand up for the cause of women on social than a fellow woman. Because, of course, women are supposed to support each other. But if a man is going to do that, my respects are going to shoot through the roof for him.
A quick response to the first question. I think She rightly pointed out, there are a couple of women who don't know the purpose of their existence on social. They don't know what is in it for me, number one. Number two is there's a strong segment of women who want to, but they don't have the resources, lack of education and lack of digital infrastructure. The third segment belongs to women who are socially bad from being on women. So I know quite a few women who are not active on Facebook because their husbands don't like it. They don't have profile pictures. They have sunflower pictures as their DPs because their families don't approve it, right? So the roots lie. For the third segment that I talked about, the roots do lie in equality of status. So whether we call it feminism is cool or feminism is uncool, the roots do lie in the equality of status that you give to men and women in a given society and culture. So that is the first, there are three segments, and there are many corporations who have come up with doing efforts to bring more women online. Like Google's initiative called Helping Women Go Online is a big corporate initiative which they have undertaken, wherein they will provide for more women to come online. And for the second question, let us not use the word war with feminism. So it's all about equality, and I appreciate you saying this. It coming from a man, I think half the battle has been won for us. So with more women coming on social, 50-50 ratio will inbuild the kind of equality of voices that is needed for both men and women on social. So I think we'll win there. Short while to go.
Thank you, Falguni. I know you want to ask a question. Can we take it offline because we're running short of time? So thank you, all of you. Had a very nice chat.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming all over from Ahmedabad.
Thank you so much.
And we will continue with our discussion offline. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed to all of our panel members, and thank you, Rohit, for spearheading this fabulous discussion. Once again, I'm going to request all the members of the audience to please connect with our speakers offline. Well, it's time to move ahead with our next session, and this is going to be really interesting because we have a leader who comes from the tech space. I'm sure many of us are on Facebook. In fact, all of us are on Facebook. Then there are many of us who are on Instagram. And if there's something that is making all of our collages look so fabulous on Instagram, I may admit, which I also use, it's called PixArt. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have with us this evening our next speaker, who in fact is somebody who's driving the consumer marketing strategy for PixArt, which is one of the leading mobile photo editing, drawing and community app. And prior to PixArt, he's also been associated with Instagram business team, in fact in the early stage. And prior to being with Instagram, he's also been with Facebook as a head of marketing in Europe, Middle East, as well as Africa. So those are the three mediums that we're talking about. And this evening, he's going to be sharing his perspectives on create, collaborate, share, how mobile connectivity is empowering collective creativity. Let's have an enthusiastic round of applause. Please help me welcome our next speaker, Eric Edge.
Thank you. Thank you.
Coming this way.
Yeah,
I thought you were.
I tricked you.
Oh, you tricked me well. All right. So can we have a round of applause one more time with a lot more enthusiasm for Eric Edge?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me in Mumbai today. I haven't been back here for about 9 years. So 9 years ago, I was here, and there's so many things that are different. I got to my hotel in 30 minutes, not an hour and 15. So these flyovers are amazing, I have to say. But it's great to be back in Mumbai, and it's very exciting to be talking about PixArt. As you guys heard, I spent a lot of my career in tech, but before Facebook, Instagram, and PixArt now, I was actually in the ad world. And so I spent about 10 years in the ad industry. And so I kind of bring this interesting dynamic where I have this creative mind that's kind of been implanted into technology. And so you'll see a lot of what I talk about today is really routed in creativity because I think that's actually the future of where tech is going. So I like to start with this slide, if my clicker will work. Let's give it a try. There we go. I like to start with this slide because I think we're all creative. And I think it's something very easy for us to forget. You know, a lot of times, especially in tech, when you're talking to people, developers, engineers, they say, oh, I'm not creative, you'll have to talk to the creative guys. But we have to remember there's all that side of our brain that is actually very creative. And I think that's really important. It's important in how we communicate, but it's important in where we see the future headed in the way we communicate. So think about how we communicate today. If I think back to the first text message, we didn't even call it text, the first text message I sent, I remember pushing 222 to get C, and then 555 for the next letter, right? It took forever. And so I was excited though. I was excited that I could send 3 or 4 words to my friend who lives in Italy. I was living in the US, and I was able to communicate. Now if I think about it, the way that we're communicating is way more creative. If I pull out my phone, what you'll see are images and emojis, pictures of my kids probably, or pictures of you guys if I took a picture, because the way I'm communicating does not rely on the written language. And I think that's something very interesting. There's something interesting happening in the way that we communicate. I pulled this slide because I also thought this was interesting. This was about a year ago. And this data came out, and this is basically talks about purchase intent. It was saying, what do you plan to do? Well, the thing that stood out to me here in the US a year ago is 18% of people said they plan to buy a wearable. Now, for me, that's really interesting because I think what this is saying is that, and by the way, this was pre-Apple Watch, pre-Fitbit going crazy, right? What's interesting with this is people were saying, I not only want to communicate creatively, but by the way, I need the technology to make that happen. And if I don't have the technology, then I can't communicate creatively, and then what are we going to do, right? So I thought that was really interesting. Something else that's interesting is when you look at how we creatively express ourselves, there's this interesting evolution happening. I put this up because this is something very real to me, where I remember having a flip cam, and it looked like that. There was a red button, and all you could really do is record. And it was funny because I got one, I recorded things, and then I didn't do anything with it. It's kind of like back when you started to take pictures with your phone at the very beginning. You'd take pictures, but what do you do with the pictures? There was nowhere to put them. Now there is. But this evolution of how we express ourselves is really interesting, right? So you had this flip cam, and that was interesting. Then people said, I was taking selfies, but now selfies aren't cool unless I have a selfie stick so that I could get the full perspective. But selfie sticks weren't enough, and so then you look at something like GoPro. And GoPro's amazing because I could strap it on my dog, and you could see what my dog's doing all day. Or I could put it on my kids, and you could see the perspective of my kids. They're 3 years old, so their perspective is about that high. But it's really interesting to see the evolution, and now that's not even enough. You put your GoPro on a drone, and you have to fly the drone up in the sky, and you have to let the picture be taken so everyone can see all of you and get some perspective that you never had before. That's where things are headed. That's how people want to express themselves. And what's interesting about that when we think about creativity is it's all about a unique and creative point of view. That's really what people are looking for. People are also creative in how they discover the world. So again, back to this idea of capturing content and then it going nowhere back in the day. If we look at where we are today, this chart is really interesting. Nilsson put this together, and I borrowed it to show you guys because I thought it was really interesting to see how slow we evolved in not only discovering content, but also publishing content. There were no real ways for us to publish what we had. And then right around 2000, you see this massive burst. Social media plays a huge part in that. And this massive burst meant that we could not only share the content that was important to us, we could actually start to discover it. And when we discover this content, it allows us to be much more creative in everything that we do because back to what we started with, we're not relying upon the written language, we're able to communicate very visually. I like to put this slide up. I like to talk about National Geographic because when I was little, I went to my uncle's house and he had magazine after magazine of National Geographic on his shelf. And I'd always go there and I'd sit there and I'd flip through the magazine and I was really excited when a new one came. What's interesting is if I said that to my kids, again, they're only 3, but in a few more years, whenever they're interested in stuff like this, if I said it to my kids, hey, have you seen the latest issue of National Geographic? They're going to look at me like I'm crazy. Because they don't need to wait for the magazine to come. We're now discovering the world instantaneously in full definition, high and full definition, beautifully from a perspective that's truly unique. And these are some images from Instagram's, the National Geographic account on Instagram. They have 36 million followers around there on Instagram. 6 million is what the magazine circulation is every month. So you see an interesting shift happening there. You also, when we think of discovery, see this interesting shift to this app world. And we all know this is happening, But this was interesting to me. This was a forecast put out. And so if you look at 2009, there were 2.5 billion apps in the world, which is a lot. If you look at the forecast for 2017, 268 billion apps. So what does this mean? It means we actually have a lot of ways on our mobile device to discover content that's meaningful to us. And that's really interesting. It was interesting for me when I was at Facebook. It was interesting for me at Instagram. And it's now interesting for me at Pixar. Why? Because that is how people are discovering the world. Everything that we're talking about here is this shift to a visual way of communicating. A recent study said 44% of millennials use their camera and video daily. What I thought was even more interesting was the next stat that says 78% of them use the camera and video to actually create the content just for social media. So all of a sudden, when we look at these numbers, which we all know very well, Facebook, 8 billion video views a day. Instagram, 80 million pictures uploaded every day. Pixar, billions of views every month. YouTube, hundreds of millions of views a day. It all starts to make sense. Why? Because we're creatively communicating with each other in a way that just does not rely on a written word. And that makes life a lot more interesting. This was just a fun one that I came across in some research I was doing recently, talking about emojis, back to how we communicate and the use of emojis. Some of these stats were just interesting, and so I thought I'd share them with you. The first was, they did a study across 16 languages and said, people who speak these languages, what is their emoji use like? And so the most emoji-savvy language was Malaysian. They used the most broad variety of emojis. French was interesting because they use 4 times as many hearts, and their number 1 emoji isn't a smiley face. It was interesting for Arabic speakers. There were a lot of flowers and plants that were used there. Russians were much more romantic, and Americans were much more random. I don't know if that's good or bad. But I thought this was interesting, again, because if I would have put this up 3 years ago, you would have looked at me like, why are you putting up those weird little pictures? But it all makes sense today, right? And more it's making sense. And it's all mobile. The funny thing is we no longer have to justify this. 5 years ago, even 8 years ago, if I would have stood up here, I would have had to talk about, no, listen, everyone, I swear mobile is it. Everyone's shifting to mobile. Right? Talk about emerging, right? Oh, it's all mobile. I don't have to do that anymore. We don't have to justify because everyone knows it's happening or it's already happened. And so instead what we're looking at is saying, what are people doing when they're on that device and how can we communicate with them creatively and give them the opportunity to express themselves in ways that they can't do elsewhere. This was interesting. The stat that I'll call out here, 80% of millennials say the first thing they do in the morning is check their phone. I definitely do. Before I go to bed in the morning, before I go to bed's a bad habit because if there's something wrong then I can't sleep and then it's this horrible cycle because then I stay on my phone, right? So it's like this bad thing that happens, but we all do it. We talked about apps. The interesting thing about apps is this. If we look at app usage, there was a study that said on average, how many apps do you use on average? 26.7 to be specific was the number. What was interesting is they looked at this over time and said, are the average number of apps that you use on, I don't know if it was a daily basis or weekly basis, but is that number going up or is it staying the same? Actually, it stayed the same, but what that line is on top is that's actually the time spent in those apps. And so what you see is that people's capacity to interact with a set of apps that they like and engage on a daily basis is around 26, but the time they spent continues to increase and increase and increase. So as an app, and a creative app, and an amazing photo editing tool, what do? I want to make sure that we're creating everything that we possibly can so that we're part of that 26.7. What's interesting though is it's gone from more of a place where you are taking an action that is more about just capturing something and moving to a place that's more collaborative. SoundCloud, collaborative music, sharing people's music, 100 million tracks. Pixar, 250 million installs, billions of views a month. Twitch for gaming, 100 million unique viewers per month. Pinterest, 50 million pins. These numbers are insane. But the reason they're insane is because people want to be collaborative in the way that they create and in the way that they communicate. This is something interesting on Pixar, and you should check it out, #free-to-edit. This is a phenomenon that we see on our platform, which is where somebody will post an image and put the hashtag free-to-edit, and all of a sudden the community comes on and makes a bunch of interpretations on their own. So you have the bear on the left that's turned into the bear, the 4 or 5 other bears that you see there. It's a really interesting thing that you see happening, which is this idea of not just creation, but collaboration. And it's not just people collaborating with people, it's people collaborating with brands. So for those of you in the room with brands, this is happening already. It's happened here in India with Pepsi and IPL. It's happened in the US with Doritos and Super Bowl. You have Bill Gates down there doing the ice bucket challenge or rice bucket challenge I heard they had here. And then you have the Oreo campaign here. This is all involving people, not just for content creation or crowdsourcing, but because inherently people want to be a part of the creative process. This is what at Pixar we believe to be the future. We think this is where everything is headed. People want to collaborate and they want to be creative. Take a look at this. So why is that interesting? It's interesting because those are all things that people are making with their finger, touching a piece of glass and doing cool things and making that art, which I can't do anything like that. Why is it interesting here? Because India is an amazing opportunity. Not only is it a massively creative culture, but what we see is India is a leader in growth in this region. It's one of our top markets globally. And when I looked at research into what Indian people are doing with Pixar on the platform, they're really into this editing process and sharing with the community. I'll show you some more of those later. But it's really about the editor. So Pixar, you can edit, you can draw, there's the community, collages. India really over-indexed on editing and community. What's interesting here when I look into our platform, and I think this is indicative, by the way, of where we're headed. When I look at our platform, what we see is our user base is spread evenly around the globe. If we think back 7 or 8 slides, what is interesting here is that we're not relying upon that language. I know I've said that a couple times, but it really is a phenomenon that we haven't seen before. We couldn't have launched an app and had it spread globally like this if we were relying on solely English, let's say, right? Or French or Spanish. Instead, we're relying on images, and that's why we think this is what you see here. Just some more data about us, which is interesting, and it was interesting following the previous discussion. We skew a little younger than older, and we skew a little more female than male. So it was interesting to see this. I know there's other social platforms that have some of that as well, where there is a higher female user base than male, and I think that's interesting as well. And we talked about this a bit, 250 million installs on Pixar globally, 65 million monthly actives. This is all to say that people actually want to be involved in this creative process, and we think this is going to grow. It's not just going to grow with us. There's a place for all of us in this landscape. It's going to grow because of this. By 2020, the forecast, and you guys know this well, 6.1 billion smartphone users, 80% of all mobile traffic will happen on a smartphone. India has one of the biggest opportunities when it comes to smartphone penetration and what that means for people to access, not only to be connected, but to access the apps that allow them to do things like create, express, discover, and share. That's a massive opportunity here. That's exciting to me. It's exciting to all of you guys too, I'm sure. And the other fact here is 60% of all mobile traffic will be video. That was really interesting to me. Do you know what that really means in my mind? It doesn't mean that video is going up. It does, but that's not what's interesting to me. What's more interesting to me is that the access to bandwidth and data is becoming more and more universal and more accessible, so much so that forecasters are saying that video will be 60% of all mobile traffic. And that is something that is much more interesting to me than the medium. It's the level of connectivity that people are going to have at the touch of a finger. So I'm going to close before I do a couple questions on some of my favorites from India. These are all Pixar artists. And I just thought I'd show you what's already happening out there. You could see their username, so if you want to follow them on PixArt, go for it. But you could see some of the amazing creative that people are sharing already here in India. You know, you have everything from pictures to really interesting art, we'll call it art, drawing. Again, beautiful pictures. This is looks very complicated. It's a really interesting thing you could do on PixArt in maybe 5-10 minutes. This double exposure, layering type effect. You see what people do. They're expressing themselves in really unique ways. They're bringing in art, mobile art, into a space that allows them to be discovered, almost like a mobile art gallery. And again, I think that's what's interesting. That's where we're headed. These are some of my favorites, so please keep them coming. And thank you guys for taking the time today. I think we're out of time for questions, so I'm happy to answer some more offline. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Eric. A very, very beautiful presentation there, a visually very captivating presentation. Most importantly, some fabulous insights, including some very, very edgy insights that we managed to capture through our phones as well. A lot of us were taking our phones right out there to capture them. Thank you so much. Well, before we march ahead with our next set of sessions, this evening, in fact, we have the presence of one of the very pioneering names that if I have to take, I'm sure all of you will resonate with a huge smile. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the managing partner of Council Age India. Please help me welcome. Well, he's somebody who needs no introduction. If I just say the name, let's have a huge round of applause for Mr. Suhail Seth. A very warm welcome, Suhail. Well, he is here to share his perspectives on cult brands and how how today's top brands breed loyalty and fanatism. So I'm going to hand it over straight away to you, Suhail. Over to you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The topic is how brands breed loyalty and fanaticism. In the wake of what's happening in the world, fanaticism in this context is completely different from what we are seeing with all the crazy people going completely nuts. I think brands in India, or for that matter across the world, need to worry about social media. They need to worry about instant judgment. They need to worry about the fact that they're constantly on call, that consumer grievances, consumer complaints, more importantly, consumer anger is almost a minute away. And I don't think a lot of brands in India specifically are aware or attuned to the kind of moves that social media is making. I don't think they're aware of the fact that responding is no longer enough, acting is critical. What often happens is, and I've seen this with a lot of large brands, especially in the telecom space, where a tweet goes out from an angry customer and is responded to by some corporate communications department which says, "Fine, we've heard you and we'll look into it." People want immediate gratification. Given who we are in this country, India by and large has a problem for every solution. We are the biggest whiners on the planet. We complain about everything. We love complaining because we have nothing else to do. We complain about traffic, we complain about Sharad Pawar, we complain about Narendra Modi. We even complain about the fact that, actually I do, about the fact that this session started 27 minutes late. That's who we are. So in a society which is, and I don't want to use the word, but I must, which is increasingly intolerant, it's even more important for brands to recognize the fraughtness with which social media has been intertwined. And a lot of that has to do with the way brands resonate on social media. Social media isn't about soft power. It isn't about being nice and humble and happy. Social media is about being rational, quick, and curt. curt with kindness. I don't think a lot of brands in India recognize the dangers with which they are fraught, especially in a world where you're open to criticism, you're open to examination, but more importantly, open to opinion. We in India have an opinion on everything, on literally everything. People who haven't read Shakespeare will talk to you about Hamlet in the fullness of time. People who haven't read King Lear will talk about the fact that do not mock them because they're old and foolish. People who haven't read Prem Chand, I don't know how many of you know who Prem Chand was, and I'm telling you he's not a Bollywood actor, would not know what the hell is going on. So we use social media also to impress upon other people with our reasonably facetious knowledge. We want people to know that we know, but we actually don't. So brands are endangered because they are engulfed with this pool of intellectual innocence that they are swimming in, because there are a lot of people who don't know what the hell is going on. The tragedy is that most Indian CEOs are averse to social media because they don't want to be criticized. They don't want to be open to opinions which may not be to the liking of their corporate communications department. There are very few Indian CEOs who handle social media brilliantly, and the one who does most outstandingly is Anand Mahendra. He uses social media to help solve problems, to address issues of nationalism and not patriotism, which remains the last refuge of many scoundrels. And he uses social media to inform and engage. I believe that brands, in order to breed loyalty, have to do three things. They have to engage, they have to entertain, and they have to empower. Brands which don't do any of these things are the worst sufferers. Brands which do one of these three things are not optimizing their brand strength as far as social media is concerned. So where are we headed in this mire of social media? I believe brands must understand that their responsibility ultimately is not to their marketing manager or to their CEO, but to a wider group of people. They must recognize the fact that every consumer is important and not just VIP consumers or people who have large following. Brands must also recognize that sometimes it's the nondescript individual who in your mind is nondescript who can actually create a firestorm which you can't emerge from. I mean, I was at Heathrow Terminal 5 day before yesterday when Sachin Tendulkar lost his bags and my flight was delayed by 3 hours and British Airways didn't bother to speak to anyone. So all we did was happily troll British Airways. And they were trending for all the wrong reasons. And then British Airways sends me this tweet saying, "Oh, sorry, we let you down." I said, "No, you didn't let me down. In Tendulkar's case, you let about 3 billion cricket fanatics down. In my case, you piss me off. So let's replace the word let me down with piss me off." So the tragedy is a lot of brands don't realize the long-term damage they're causing themselves, especially brands that are in the trust space. I'm amazed as to why Maggi and Nestle in that order have been so stupid. No one is interested in expensive television commercials. You know, I can't say the same thing about many other brands because they're all sponsors of this rather magnificent, well-attended event. But I'll come to Messi later, which I haven't understood why Tata Motors uses a hashtag called Made of Great, which apart from being incorrect English, doesn't convey a damn thing. But we'll come to Tata Motors later. They have enough problems of their own with Nano. It's almost as if we in India, other than Narendra Modi, have nothing great to offer. But that's for Tata Motors to decide under their really vibrant new chairman. Actually, that's a personal comment. It has nothing to do with the organizers of the event. So they can keep getting sponsored for the next 5 years. Otherwise, they face being trolled by the same very people who are in this audience and those 372 wretched people who are watching this live because they have nothing else to do. And I was told that Ahmedabad has the highest viewership of live streaming. Why be surprised? They can't drink. They might as well get high on intellectual rubbish. I mean, officially they can't drink. So to come back to the main topic, which is, to my mind, the encompassing of social media. I have about 715 or 717,000 followers on Twitter, and I have always used Twitter to do three things: poke fun at politicians, number two, make brands stand up in terms of probity, because I think a lot of brands are irresponsible. Brands have treated consumers like popcorn. And the third, which I find really distressing, is that we are changing the social discourse of our country. And I'm not even getting into this intolerant versus tolerant debate. I mean, you live in Bombay under Uddhav Thackeray. You are by far the most tolerant people on this planet. And you know, I know these guys don't get black ink after 5 p.m., so they couldn't be walking in here. Plus, ISDI is so far in Parel, away from their Dadar headquarters, or wherever the hell their headquarters are. I believe brands in India have to recognize that social media can be the best referral form of customer acquisition. No brand is actually using social media to acquire customers. No brand, tragically, is using social media to retain customers. But what's the worst is no brand is using social media to reward loyalty. Loyalty by nature is not a function of just someone. I think Bobby, the gentleman from Canada, told me about zombie whatever. But it's not about creating zombies alone. In India, we are suspicious of everything other than our parenthood. By and large, Indians are suspicious of everything. I mean, you know, you tell someone, oh, he's really done well. Oh, yeah, he must be a crook. I mean, a lot of them are, but, you know, we tar everyone with the same brush. So if you actually go into the details of marketing, and I believe the topic should have been, how is social marketing going to reinvent consumers in the eyes of brands and brands in the eyes of consumers? That, to my mind, is the essential debate. Because if I can communicate in a gentle, rational, cryptic manner that this is who I am, this is what I offer, and these are the benefits that you will derive, those are the brands that will be successful. In every marketing lecture that I've been invited to deliver, I've always said, consumers ultimately don't buy brands. The biggest mistake marketers make is they believe consumers are buying brands. No. Consumers always buy benefits. You don't buy a Rolex because it shows you the time, because a Titan does the same thing. You buy a Rolex because of the badge value of a Rolex. You buy a Rolex because the performance risk is zero, but so is the social risk. I mean, no one is going to curse you because you're wearing a Rolex. And it's the same if you go through all brands. Brands by nature are premedicated or judged, to my mind, across three risks: performance, social, and self-image. Will this brand really work if I paid so much of money? So that's the performance risk. The social risk is, if I carry a Zippo lighter versus a Matchbox from St. Regis, New York, how will I be valued? And the third is, what is my self-image risk? If I'm driving a Mercedes or a Rolls Royce or a Nano, how am I perceived in terms of a social risk or a self-image risk? I think most social media managers are not doing the right job for two reasons. Number one, most companies have outsourced social marketing to a digital marketing agency, which is almost as obtuse as Digital India. I have not understood what Digital India is or what smart cities are. You know, I've always said we can't have smart cities as long as we have idiots running them. The idiot bit is not going to change, so I'm one day hoping that we'll certainly have smarter citizens. Likewise, digital marketing, to my mind, is the most abused concept after Jihadi John. Well, I haven't understood how on earth will you integrate the entire marketing effort, which we keep talking about in 360-degree marketing terms, how you will actually integrate the entire marketing effort. The day digital becomes a spin-off from your mainline advertising or communication, you're dead. Because the consumer in receiving terms is in a different space. The consumer in engagement terms is in a different space. When I watch an advertisement on television, or when I see a newspaper advertisement, there's precious little that I can do qua the company. But there's a lot I can do in terms of social media. What I've often told chairmen and CEOs who I advise, use social media as your first point of research and referral. If you want to talk about taste, if you want to talk about promotions, if you want to talk about trials, use social media. Two things happen. One is you transfer the power of taste, choice to the consumer. Number two, you make the consumer involved in brand creation. Ultimately, we're all second-hand people in terms of brand usage. We don't have much of a choice or much of a call when it comes to brand structure, brand persona, or brand receiving. Social media, to my mind, allows you that. And I think it's important for brands to use social media as much as they can for validation. They must also use it for testimonializing, which very few brands do. I've not seen any company actually tell me that, hey, Nestle India has crossed 1 million on Twitter. That would be an advertisement for testimonializing, saying, oh, there are so many people who engage with brand Nestle. Or for that matter, any brand. You know, even the President of India, who sends out some of the dullest tweets on the planet, but even that handle is so unexciting. Narendra Modi, apart from publishing his travel schedule and photographs with international leaders who no one can recognize, there's no engagement. Like when this whole intolerance and beef nonsense happened, I said on television and on Twitter, this is the time when people in power need to engage. You may not want to publicly, admonish one of your errant roguish ministers, but use Twitter as a support mechanism to tell people that you don't necessarily subscribe to a view that is so didactic or contrarian to the national mainstream. But people don't use it. So the biggest mistake I think brands and individual brands are making is we're using social media for information. Social media is not a monologue platform. It's a dialogue platform. If you understand the virtues, the necessity, the importance of dialoguing with your consumers, you will recognize that social media can be used to great advantage to harness thought, to harness cultural moorings, and most important, to harness feedback. And that, to my mind, is very, very important, which some of our brands are attempting to do, but brands by and large ignore. Why do we use social media most of the time? We use it to cast an opinion. By and large, the opinion is either political in nature or social in nature. We would either condemn or condone social thought, social action. If you saw what happened, the horrific bombings on Friday the 13th in Paris, you suddenly had a hashtag called Pray for Paris. What you were doing was you were creating a community of engaged minds across one social need of the hour. And that was not Pray for Paris. The benefit was solidarity in the wake of terror. That was actually what you were trying to say. You were trying to say that we won't be thwarted by terrorism, we won't be fearful of terrorism, and we won't let cowardice rule the world. Why can't brands use some of these tags when they're actually talking about national events? B, there are many brands that use or invoke nationalism in their communication. But I haven't seen even one brand in India wish the people a happy Republic Day or a happy Independence Day. They don't encourage young men and women to actually, in 140 characters, define their belief of the Indian dream. Now, these are things that would help you engage with consumers, where otherwise you're only monologuing and not dialoguing. So the problem is, which is by and large a marketing issue, I don't think we in India, especially in today's world of advertising and marketing, and I hate to say this, we have become dismissive of strategy. We are living in very hurried times where tactics has replaced strategy, where immediacy has replaced thought, and where urgency has replaced great foresight. It's because you want to do something immediately that you do it in a rush without thinking it through. And then it begins to show. It shows in your communication, it shows in your language, it shows in your goddamn hashtags made of great, it shows in messy. It does. And with due apologies to Tata Motors, it must have been some marketing guy who wanted to go to Milan or wherever the hell Messi lives to sign him on, along with a whole team of advertising blokes who'd go and make a film for so much of money that the average young person in India would say, "Par ye Sachin Tendulkar thodi hai." That's the problem. We have moved away, to my mind, from the national idiom of understanding. And which is why I talked about research, which is why I talked about referral. I think social media can be the biggest research tool that consumers, companies, brands must employ. Your target audience is defined. You can easily, through data analytics, define for yourself who are the people, which geographies are they seeing you from. You can then tailor-make the communication both in idiom and language. We fail to recognize that Twitter is no longer an English medium exercise. There are many people who tweet in local languages. And I'm not talking about local languages in the Indian context. I'm talking about regional languages, international languages. So we've got to recognize that when the language of the consumer is distinct from the language that you mass employ, you're actually frittering away a great opportunity. And most brands don't realize that. Brands believe in typical herd mentality because someone somewhere is covering his ass. It's as simple. Someone will say that, look, I don't believe that, I must experiment with languages. Marketing, and most importantly, social media, is about never being risk averse. It's about risk taking with careful thought. It's about strategic risk taking so that you recognize where, who, and what your message will be and who it will impact. If we don't maintain these basic dimensions of our social media outreach, I think we're doing ourselves a great disservice. Finally, fanaticism, which is one part of my topic. Fanaticism occurs for two reasons. If you look at religious fanaticism, or if you look at social fanaticism, you look at clan behavior, it's always the insecurities of the few against the security of the many. In the context of what happened in Paris and before that, the Charlie Hebdo scene, I've always said on Twitter and elsewhere, the more you blame Islam, you will push people into a corner because the Quran doesn't tell you to kill. Neither does the Mahabharata, the Ramayana. No religion tells you to kill. So if there are a few who use religion to kill, don't tarnish religion. Because what you're doing is you're pushing some very good people to a corner from which they will not be able to retreat because of the overarching pressure. And that, to my mind, is a significant problem of social media. Social media has what I would call intellectual vandalism and intellectual terrorism, which it must avoid. And brands can fall prey to that very easily. So I will sum up by saying brands must be very careful of invoking fanaticism. And brands will do that the moment they have either a religious or a social color to their communication. So the three things that all brands must avoid: politics, sex, and religion. If you get involved with any of these three, you then intervene, in my mind, into the social framework of the individual that you're targeting, and you're then open for some kind of viciousness which could well be avoided. And no brand needs viciousness. I will end by saying that we are living in tumultuous times, as we all know, but we're also living in very interesting times. Brands would spend a fortune to engage with consumers. Today they can engage with consumers for free. But it's when things are free that you incur the greatest expenditure, because then it's the expenditure of intelligence over ease. It's the expenditure of strategy over tactics. It's the expenditure of timelessness over alacrity. That's when you need to worry. So I would end by saying that brands must engage with consumers through social media. They must breed loyalty in a myriad ways. Greed is only one of them, avarice only another. And avoid fanaticism. Loyalty is a far better word than fanaticism. Steak is a far better descriptor than beef. Thank you so much. See, I was told 25 minutes. It's exactly 25 minutes.
We'll have the
So,
floor
any
open for
questions? Yeah, sure.
We do have the floor open for questions. I'm sure all of us are very engrossed during his talk. So any queries, please raise your hands. We'll have the mics passed on. We have a question here.
We have a question here. Okay, I would like to know, why is Messi the wrong fit exactly?
Are you from Tata Motors?
No, not at all.
Join Tata Motors, you'll know.
Okay, cool.
No, I'm just joking. No, to be fair, if Messi, okay, let's have a marketing discussion for a bit. If Messi was brand ambassador of Jaguar Land Rover, it would have worked. Because Jaguar Land Rover is an international brand. Tata Motors, by and large, is not going to ship the Aria or the Nano to, Spain and Italy or North America. So to have an international footballer, who, by the way, is retired, as your brand ambassador, to my mind, doesn't make sense. But the people at Tata Motors are very bright, so someone must have taken the right decision. I'm just going to wait for about 20 years to figure it out.
So, see, earlier 3-4 years, Twitter, LinkedIn, these were dormant.
Huh?
Twitter, Facebook, five years ago, they were not there. Now, suddenly they have come in our life. What do you see next 5 years?
I don't know. If I knew that, I'd be like you. I can't predict. We don't know.
Will they converge, or what will be the direction you see?
No clue. I have no idea. It's so fast pacing that just living in the moment is becoming difficult. So to predict what will happen in 5 years, we don't know. There might be so much of hatred on Twitter that more and more people might leave Twitter as individuals or companies. More and more people may postpone Twitter and instead settle for what I call the softer social media platforms, like Facebook or whatever. But I really don't know what's going to happen. I do remember in the Bay Area talking to, thousands of Google employees when they just about or were about to launch Google Hangout, saying, do whatever you have to with the budget and economy and politicians, but use Google Hangout actually to promote cross-country, cross-cultural art, cross-cultural thought. So I'm an investor in a brand called Intelligence Squared, which is run out of England, which is the finest debating platform in the world. And we've used Google Hangout to actually communicate those debates, or to get people involved in those debates on a much larger plane. But for me to tell you what will happen 5 years later, I don't know. Probably Rahul Gandhi is Prime Minister. Even you're laughing, so even you don't know.
I wanted to enjoy your answer.
Yeah, good evening. You made a point about tactic ruling over strategy, and the depth of brand thinking is not happening. So what do you think as marketers need to look into, because broadly across industry this has been seen. So what would be your advice to marketers so that the strategy rules?
To get back to marketing. Actually, to get back to marketing, to evaluate consumer insights in a very deep manner, not from the kind that they're doing today, for advertising agencies to stop presenting TV commercial scripts and actually look at presenting strategy, understanding where consumer behavior is headed. If you want to fashion consumer behavior, then create the communication which will herd them towards that understanding that you wish them to have. But to just create a cookie cutter communication and then hope for things to work, it's ridiculous.
Hello, sir. Sir, I have a question. You said that
no brand is able to use social media intelligently. So what do you think, what is the reason behind it that they are not able to use it, social media?
So in the 17th sentence of my speech, I also gave you the reasons. The reasons were very simple, that people who are actually guiding the destiny of these brands are outsourcing that to digital agencies, which basically have no umbilical cord with the brand. So they believe that output is more important than quality output. So digital agency will say, oh, you know, we sent out 200 tweets, but did it do anything? That's the question.
Thank you.
Yes?
For a person like me who's not very techno savvy, what is the best medium to use?
Tinder.
What's Tinder?
You'll be savvy in many things after you start using Tinder.
What's Tinder?
It's soft porn technology, and remember to swipe right. I'm just joking here. Well, actually, Tinder will de-age you very quickly. Try it tonight. Are you married? Yeah, you're not dead. Try Tinder still. It's fun. I haven't tried it, but I've been told that many people get lucky. The only screw up with Tinder in India is you never know when 3G becomes 1G, and then you're left with Mayavati instead of Sunny Leone.
In the last few years, especially with e-commerce coming in, we have seen a lot of new brands which are relevant to the youth. They come and then we haven't heard of them 2-3 years down the line. Whereas there are older brands, Tata Motors could be one of them, or there are brands which are like anywhere 20 years old, and older. How do they reinvent or bring in the cool factor and be relevant through social media?
To the credit of the Tatas, if you see the Tata Group Twitter handle, it's very interesting. You know, for a group which is over 100 years old, they started the Tata Friday photo captioning. So there are groups that are reinventing themselves. I don't think age has anything to do with a brand. If in sheer media noise I asked you how old is Facebook, you'd say 15, 20, 25 years old, but it's not. How old is Google? It's not that old. Age is only something that we worry about in the context of ourselves. The consumer is not worried about age. The consumer is worried about benefits. The consumer is worried about satisfaction. More importantly, the consumer is worried about delight. Brands that satisfy don't have a business to exist. The ultimate objective of brands is to delight their customers. It is not to satisfy them. Satisfy is what other people will do. But brands must constantly reinvent themselves to delight their customers. And when they delight their customers, they'll obviously make it a point to be relevant and rewarding. And that, to my mind, is very critical as a brand tool or as a brand imprint.
I would like to know your thoughts about the aspect of communities, either brands using communities to build traction, awareness, brand equity, and also taking that community angle offline, trying to get some kind of traction for non-brands, like, for example, NGOs. World for All is a big example of what they're doing using social media. So, communities.
I think it's a very important point you've raised, and brands should, more importantly, cause marketeers should. You know, many months ago, and some of my dearest friends are Parsis, and I was telling them that, you know, this whole campaign that they ran about Parsis marrying and, you know, producing more children, to my mind, it would have been far better to create a social campaign which actually, you know, talked about Parsi pride, the legacy which would otherwise disappear. So you don't need to talk about children, which is the pipeline, but not the benefit. Likewise, even Swachh Bharat, you know, Modi started with all the right intentions. There's a lot that can be done. People should be encouraged to upload pictures of stuff that has happened and stuff that hasn't happened. You know, what I'm seeing with great delight is a lot of our politicians are now active on Twitter. So even if they don't respond, the fact is they're receiving information which hopefully they will act on. At least some of them who have a brain. So, you know, there are various ways of using social media to influence change. I believe, and I do a Sunday piece for the Mirror every Sunday, and I said yesterday that we've neglected the Indian imprint of performing arts. So if I talked to you about Malhar, you'd think it's a festival at St. Xavier's College. You wouldn't even know it's a raga. So if I talk to you about, let's say, Pandit Sudarshan, you wouldn't know who I'm talking about. So what has happened is we've replaced, as I said earlier, the easy, lazy symbols or the epitome of Indian culture, which is Bollywood, rather than actually who we are. And to that end, I think Narayan Murthy's son, Rohan Murthy, is doing a fabulous job by translating the Indian classics under a Harvard collaborative project into English. You know, I was born and raised in Calcutta, grew up on a very healthy diet of cross-cultural literature, which included an Engels and a Marx for obvious reasons in Calcutta then. But you also were exposed to the thoughts and the beliefs of a Max Muller, as you were to Sri Aurobindo or Ramakrishna. Today, sadly, even those figures we've polarized into religious buckets. So today, if you tell someone, Swami Vivekananda or Sri Aurobindo, they'll think you're talking about the Hindu bucket. But people don't have an idea that they were philosophers, that the mother was actually a philosopher, that Jiddu Krishnamurti talked about unison and one world, that Guru Nanak actually talked about Ek Onkar, which is one universe, one God. So somehow in the popular narrative, we bucket things which are convenient for us to do or bucket. The narrative today is bereft of intellectual sagacity or, for that matter, any level of credibility. So you've got to bring back that narrative. You know, I was addressing about 13,000 kids 2-3 weeks ago in Bhubaneswar as part of the United Nations thingy. And I said, I'm amazed that no one, either the award-returning intellectuals or the award-getting intellectuals, no one has actually talked about the fact that you can't convert to Hinduism. So, Ghar Wapsi is nonsense. Because Hinduism is a faith, it's a way of life. You're either born a Hindu or you're not. And Hinduism and Zoroastrianism, to a large extent, are non-convertible religions. So to say Ghar Wapsi about Hinduism is stupid. The whole idea is silly. Now, if that narrative doesn't find its way or its purpose on social media, you will have an army of young people who will be fed on unintelligence and then will spew out the same venomous stuff that they do, which we see on social media by and large today. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Well, somebody had in fact tweeted that, the final session finishes off in style thanks to Suhail Seth. So thank you once again, Suhail. Can we have a huge round of applause? I think we managed to actually extract a lot of information there. Thank you again. Well, yes, on that note, we do come to the end of the day one of the Social Media Week Mumbai. Of course, we've got the next set of sessions lined up in the 5 days of the festival that we've been talking about. A lot of sessions in store. Please do take care of the agenda. Tomorrow the session begin at 3 p.m. But today, the next set of sessions, which is the conversations, will continue over cocktails and dinner. I'm going to request you all to please proceed to D Bell Cafe. Well, that's where the cocktails and conversations will continue. Thank you for being part of the day one of Social Media Week. We're already trending in India, so keep it trending. Thank you so much.